Tune-up, suspension, alignments, oil changes, Meineke does it all. See for yourself. Visit Meineke.com. An appointment. Each Meineke is independently owned and operated. Trust your key with Meineke, doing car care right.
It's all for the all.
Reigning National League MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. tore his ACL in his left knee last night in a game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He torn the ACL in his opposite knee prior, but Acuna will now obviously miss the remainder of the 2024 season. A huge hit to this team after already losing pitcher Spencer Strider earlier this season. And the Red Sox hosted the Milwaukee Brewers this weekend and had a 4-game win streak wiped away after losing all 3 games of this series at home. Yesterday's game got the juices flowing, though, because there was a bench-clearing brawl in the matchup at Fenway Park. The dispute started during the top of the 7th inning when Boston's Chris Martin covered first base on a ground ball by the Brewers' Christian Yelich. As Martin walked back to the dugout, he can be seen making a comment to Milwaukee first base coach Quentin Berry that compelled Berry to respond angrily. There was no pushing and shoving and no punches thrown in the confrontation, but the Red Sox are back on the field today to take on the Orioles at 1:05. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your drive-through oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, now open in Franklin, Billerica, and Peabody. You're listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub, Boston's home for sports. I'm Kendra Middleton, and your next update is around 6:30.
Boston's best sports talk. There's an app for that. Download the Sports Hub app for loads of stuff. Absolutely free. Connect with the shows, get podcasts, and more. Get it where you get your apps. Or at 985sportshub.com. Ta-da! We're back with Toucher and Hardy on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Fred, hello. 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 Mm-hmm. Hello. 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 Hello.
He's naked. He has a sword.
Open him up with a football.
Let's talk about cheese.
Bruins are back from the West Coast.
What the
Na.
Is it okay to use this for the radio?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, you sweet bitch.
Why does the USA have so few party holidays?
USA.
A Monday. No Toucher. No Hardy. No Wallach.
Nope.
No Dan O'Brien.
Nope.
No Nick Gemelli.
Nope.
No Mike Lockhart.
Lockhart, you here? Nope.
But much like the Bruins goaltender, we don't have a 1 and a B, a 1 and a 2. We have a 1 and a 1A.
Oh.
The 1A crew is here this morning.
Bruins are back from the West Coast.
I heard a few of Wallach's relatives outside on my way in. Ryan Johnston, we have with us this morning. How long has it been since you've been on this radio station?
This one?
Yeah.
2018.
Nick Cattles is with us this morning.
That's right.
What's going on?
It's
been a minute.
Unemployed, doing a podcast, hanging out. Came back from the West Coast, so there's that. But yeah, I'm glad to be here and working with you for the first time in a long time. I was trying to remember if we worked together. I think we did at least a couple of times before I bounced. I think.
I have to go back and look at my list because you may be number 42, I think, of the number of people that I've co-hosted a show with on this radio station.
My God.
Yeah. I'm definitely over 40, but I have to pull up the list and see if you're on it yet.
I don't
If
know.
not, congratulations. You've made a rather lengthy and illustrious list of people.
I'll tell you, RJ, I've been working in radio for like over 10 years now, and I worked at a number of different stations. I don't even think I've worked with 40-plus co-hosts.
It's a feat, man.
And
many of them have been on holidays like this. So
it's a feat.
So we got Nick Cattles here. Kendra Middleton is with us. Good morning.
Good morning, boys.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We also have Ryan Beaton producing this morning. We got Kyle Fabrizio is filling in for
Fabrizio
filling in for Nick.
I like that.
So that's who's here this morning, working, toiling in the sweatshop here on Memorial Day morning, 6 a.m. Thank you for being up with us. Some of you probably haven't been to bed yet, so that's good. You know,
Kendra barely got to bed. She said she was working the Boston Calling all weekend.
Boston Calling all weekend. I'm on my second energy drink. Thank God for the Red Bull people hanging outside last night, handing out Red Bulls at midnight because that was my breakfast this morning.
What were you doing at Boston Calling? You said you were working?
Yeah, I was there with a couple brands. So I was there with Truly on Saturday and then a VIP experience brand yesterday.
And what does that mean? Like you just hang out, like glad hand people, give away stuff? Like what are we doing?
Shaking hands and kissing babies. No, I owe them content. So Truly had a collab with a local brand called 1987 on Saturday that I was there for their shoot for, and then I'll film like a recap of my time yesterday for the experience company to post with, their stuff.
Megan Thee Stallion was the thing you said.
Megan Thee Stallion. I was more excited for the Killers and Hosier yesterday, but I have to say, I know that we have a blue-collar, pretty male audience. Megan killed it. She crushed it, I gotta say, and she looked so good.
Totally foreign. I understood about half of what you just said.
You don't have any Megan Thee Stallion in the catalog? You don't have
No. As I was sitting outside on my patio yesterday listening to Yacht Rock, no.
Oh, Yacht Rock's classic, but I thought I could figure like you driving up this morning, listening to Megan Thee Stallion on the highway with the windows down, nobody on the highway, just chilling. That's not you, huh?
Not me. No.
I had the Bee Gees and Rick Ross on the way in today.
I like that.
Quite the difference, but that was my pump up playlist this morning.
We got a lot to get to over the next 4 hours.
Yeah, we do.
The NBA Finals matchup is as good as set at this point.
Feels that way,
It's going to be Kyrie coming to Boston.
God almighty.
Yeah, we'll get into when we get into what happened last night here in a few minutes. We'll get into last night in the NBA, but Dallas is up 3-0. Celtics are up 3-0. It is a virtual certainty at this point.
Yep.
How do you feel about that?
I don't want to break down the series before the series even begins, right? I'm one of those people, RJ, Kendra, that it's not over till it's over. The old school New England fan. I know.
It's over.
But if you do want to look forward, of course, I was saying this to Kendra before the show, that there's just easy storylines. And if they close out, if the C's close out tonight and Dallas closes out tomorrow night, you're going to have a 9-day window from that point to game one of the finals. And the good news is, KP, all the other guys, you kind of get rested. You get some of the treatment that you need. The other good news of it is the content. Because, of course, here, RJ, man, it's going to be about Kyrie and Kyrie's return. We're going to have the video of him walking around with the sage at that one time. And I think the other story is going to be the closers, right? You look at Dallas, and the easy go-to is Doncic, Irving. They know how to close games. They did that against Minnesota already in this series. They've done it in this postseason versus Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who the narrative is, which we can get into later, that they can't close, and also superstar duos. So there's going to be good content, and it should be a fun series.
I'm going to be sick of everything that you just said within like 3 days. Because this is going to be like the 2-week break before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Where you exhaust all of those items it like halfway there, and it's like, can we just get to it already? I can't stand the fact that the NBA like sets a hard and fast. It's like, okay, we're starting the finals on this date. No matter what happens in the rest of the playoffs, we'll take. You're about to see a pair of sweeps in the conference finals, and then you're going to take like a nice long vacation before the most important games of the year, and give everybody a chance to kind of check out, which sucks because especially here. This has been, and listen, I'm not going to go like Maz and say, oh, this is cheapens it or all that.
You better not.
Celtics are on a hell of a run here. But the lack of competition in the East, this has not been terribly exciting. Thankfully, at least, they're getting some close games against Indy.
Yeah.
Because I was tired of watching this team blow everybody out just about every night. It's not entertaining to see a 30-point win. It's like, okay, great, that's a win, but I'm looking for a little excitement. I'm looking for a reason to, I'm not a hardcore Celtics fan. I'm looking for a reason to care.
Right.
Until they get to the finals, there really hasn't been one.
I think there's a few things. When you look at the C's, they're almost getting criticized for dominating. And I know that we look at the first 2 rounds and we say, oh, there was no Jimmy Butler and there was no this guy and that guy and, Donovan Mitchell was out after the first couple games. But really, this is what the team's been, RJ. Like all year long, they've been trouncing people. Whether they had stars, did not have stars. When you look at margin of victory and you look at, point differential, those kinds of things, when I say this season has been historical, that's not hyperbole. Like this season has been historic. If the Celtics make this run, if the Celtics finish this out tonight, move on to the finals and win the championship. Again, this is not hyperbolic. By analytics, statistics, by what they've done this year, if they win the title, this is literally one of the top 10 seasons in NBA history. Arguably. This is the best, one of the best offenses we've ever seen. They, again, are winning by a margin of like 10, 11 points on average throughout the entire season. They would have won the East even against, and I admit it, Kendra knows, everybody knows, we all know, maybe against a little bit lighter competition, quote unquote, 5 game sweep, like 14 games to get through the Eastern Conference and then get to the finals and win that after what you did in the regular season, win 64 games. And I think we're overlooking that. I think greatness gets boring. And I think people get tired of watching the same old.
But greatness usually gets boring years in.
Right.
When you have multiple championships in your pocket already, then you look back at it and it's like, okay, we're doing this again. Okay, great. It's not that big. After a while, it's like with the Patriots for years. It's like, all right, Patriots are going to roll out of bed. They're going to, be in the Final Four. You're going to the conference championship game before you ever go to training camp, unless something really goes off the rails. The Celtics are good, but they're not like all-time good. I'm sorry, they're not.
But they
talk to me when you've got a couple of championships, and then we can revisit that. But you're still going for your first one with this group. I would expect that there would be. It's like, I just, as a fan, it's difficult to get in really properly invested in this team when the series results have been a foregone conclusion to this point. Did you ever really think that they were going to be in danger against any of these 3 teams that they've been up against in the East?
No. I thought this series would go 6 if Indiana was healthy, because I think Indiana's offense is legitimate. Even without Halliburton, it's still a really good offense because of what Carlisle does. But a couple things. I do think, look, this team's not the Patriots, obviously, right? But there is fatigue about the Boston Celtics, and there's fatigue on a national level, which is why they continue to pound the same ridiculous, lazy points over and over and over again, because they've run out of stuff to talk about. So they've got to go with the whole they can't close,
Well, but they haven't closed. Like, they haven't closed the deal yet.
Well, they haven't closed in an NBA Finals, but they're capable of closing out series, closing out big games, closing out on the road. They lost to the Golden State Warriors in 2022. That's true. Last year, Tatum goes down with a high ankle sprain. If I'm going to hear people bitch about, injuries with the Celtics play against teams, I could look back and say, well, their Game 7 at TD Garden last year, Tatum goes, down with a high ankle sprain in like the first play of the game, and that changes the entire dynamic. I do think there's a fatigue, though. There's a fatigue with it. And as the way I look at it, and I don't know, Kendra, I don't know if you feel the same way, but like, I'm happy that the Celtics are taking care of business. Like, that's the way I look at it. Like, yeah, they're going against teams that don't have the talent that they have, and that's just because they're better anyway if those teams were healthy. But the fact that they're going in and they're making statements, they're beating these teams. They pull it out in overtime against Indiana. That's a game I'm not sure they win a year or two ago. The game they won on Saturday night, I don't think that's a game that they win a year or two ago. So we can sit there and talk about competition, but once you're in the game and you're playing against an NBA team and you're down 18, you still, on your end, have to show it. So that's what I take from it, is they're taking care of business.
My issue was more so the concern of them playing down to competition throughout kind of this postseason, because we saw that a little bit in the regular season. I alluded to this on Saturday when Giannis was hurt their last home game against the Bucks. They really played down to that team, and they shouldn't have. And I feel as though they played down to the Pacers in the in-season tournament a little bit. I think that was a concern for me. My question now, despite the Porzingis thing, do you guys think that this time off is a blessing, or do you think it could be a curse for the Celtics heading into this finals?
I don't think it'll matter ultimately, because Dallas is going to have the same layoff unless Minnesota, decides to give them a series and drag it deep.
Yeah.
If both teams are off for a week and a half.
I just meant for this team in particular, because I think that that's a little bit of a question mark for me personally.
Yeah, again, I think just because it's both teams, I think they're both going to come in rusty. Bet the under in game one.
Yeah.
Bet the under
legit.
in game one. Both of those teams are going to come out and shoot like 25% in the first quarter.
Yeah, and I think the reality too is this about playing down to competition. Whether I like it or you like it, Kendra, or RJ likes it, or Beaton, or what's his name, Fabrizio? What is it?
Yeah, that's
Fabrizio likes it.
Yeah,
I'm going to say Fabrizio. It's much better than Kyle. The NBA is the NBA, and what I mean by that is, these guys have certain mentalities, and I think we all have to accept that. We don't have to like it, but that happens in every city with every top team. They walk in, they see what's across from them, and they go, okay, we got this tonight. Whether we like it or not, it's not a football mentality once a week. We're going to go punch them in the face. The NBA, especially when you're in cities like Atlanta and Miami and L.A., and you go out there and you see a team without Trae Young, and you were in Atlanta the night before. Whether we like it or not, we have to accept.
If you can even see, because you were in Atlanta the night before.
Those guys are just not going to get up for a game like that. That's just the way. Now, if it was a trend in the postseason this year, I would have an issue. But that's why I said, I like that they take care of business, right? Series 1, what happens? They lose game 2. They come right back. They kick Miami in the teeth in Miami. Then same thing happens in Cleveland, game 3 of that series. Then, they could have gotten complacent the other night. They're down by, they're down 18. They could have looked across and said, hey, no Tyrese Halliburton. We'll be up 2-1. No big deal. But they kept swinging.
It's title or bust. That's at the end of the day, that's what this is. If you can't get past this wounded Eastern Conference and the Dallas Mavericks, I will rip you for the rest of eternity with no mercy whatsoever. None. Not even a little bit.
All right, we're going to get to a lot more this morning on the Celtics as they get ready for Game 4 tonight against Indiana. We also, coming up next, are going to look at what happened last night. A lot going on. We'll get into the Mavs win over the Timberwolves. We'll talk a little bit about the Rangers win over Florida yesterday. The Red Sox and Brewers nearly came to blows. And we'll also talk about a Bruins star who scored what might have been the biggest goal in his country's history yesterday. So we will talk about that coming up as well. Oh, and some potentially bad news that came out of that as well. It is Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for the guys today here on Toucher and Hardy.
just above the break against Conley. They're trying to deal with Conley on the drive. Bank it in with a foul. And Mike Conley just picked up his third foul here in the third quarter and his fourth of the game.
All right, back here on Toucher and Hardy, Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for the guys today. I believe everybody is back in tomorrow, coming off the long holiday week or weekend. It is what happened last night, and in the NBA last night, 116-107 win for the Dallas Mavericks as they go up 3-0 over the Minnesota Timberwolves. I expected, I mean, we're talking about, the Celtics and the path that they've had through the East. I mean, granted, last night's game wasn't exactly a blowout, but I expected Minnesota to give Dallas a much better test than this, than to be down 3-0 at this point and basically have their season coming to an end later this week.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that are kind of weird to me about this series. Number one, I don't know why Coach Finch continues to just allow Luka Doncic and Kyrie to eat against single coverage. Like, I don't understand that they're perfectly fine with Rudy Gobert against Luka in game 2 at the end of that game, one-on-one. That's a disastrous idea. And then last night, it's just more of the same. Like, Luka's coming down, they get the switch, big guy's defending him, and he's going to toast him. And then Kyrie comes down, gets the switch on a big guy, he's going to roast him. Over and over and over again. They tried to blitz every once in a while on Luka. But I just think, RJ, what you're seeing is, and I know Minnesota beats Denver, so people went bananas. Anthony Edwards was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Watch out, Minnesota is going to be devastating. But it all comes down to matchups. It really does. And Minnesota was built to beat Denver. That roster was built to beat the Nuggets. The Nuggets are big. They got big wings. They got big bigs. Jokic is obviously a beast. So that Minnesota roster was constructed to beat that team. Dallas is a completely different team. And now you're dealing with those two guards who are both dynamic with the ball in their hands. And Mike Conley is just, defensively, he's not going to be able to hang. They try to put Jaden McDaniels on guys, and he does a decent job, but it's still a tough cover for McDaniels because Kyrie is so shifty and Luka is Luka. So they're having a hell of a time defending those two guys, and that's what it's really been.
Well, I think the Timberwolves obviously are super young. They remind me kind of in the Oklahoma City in the fact that I think they need a year or two before that they're really going to be in the conversation. But the big thing for me is that you're not getting the same production out of Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert as you were getting in the prior series. Karl Anthony Towns went 0 for 8 from 3 last night.
He's on a milk carton in this series.
You can't have that. He's got to be the difference maker in this series.
He's shooting 28% for the series. He hasn't cracked 30% yet in the series.
He stunk last night. He stunk out loud. The first half, Finch said last night in the postgame that I think he said it was hard to watch. The head coach said that. It was hard to watch. Cat had, I think, 1 point with 4 minutes left in the second quarter. He was invisible. And not only that, he looked like he forgot how to play basketball for the first quarter and a half. He had no idea what to do.
He does that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He does that. Not even just in the postseason. He does that in the regular season. And that was the big question that I had for the Timberwolves going into this season. And when they started to, kind of pop off a bit, it's just, I don't trust Karl Anthony Towns in the postseason. I don't. He's going to fall apart at some point. He goes invisible.
Yeah. And that's the thing, RJ, when you look at this team, Minnesota beat Denver because of their defense and because Ant went crazy. Minnesota, they can't score consistently. They've got Ant. Rudy Gobert is not an offensive player, as we know. McDaniels can knock down the occasional corner three. As Kendra just said, Cat is, MIA, if not every game, at least every other game it feels like. They don't have enough guys to put the ball in the hoop. And so they have to win. They have to beat you by holding you under 110 points. If they can keep you to around 100 to 110, they've got a chance. If they can't do that, there's no way on God's green earth they're going to outscore this Dallas team. It's just not going to happen. Unless Ant has a 45-point game in him, it's just not going to happen.
They don't have the same facilitation that Dallas has, and that's the big difference maker for me.
Yeah, and you got Kyrie, and we could talk about Kyrie all we want, but the fact is this. To me, it's very simple, RJ. Kyrie finally realized over the last couple of years, I'm a number 2. He didn't realize that here in Boston. He had the younger team. He wanted to be the guy.
He wasn't really a number 2 here either.
Right.
I mean, at that point, he wasn't going to be the number 2.
Yeah, and I think, but now he's had the reality, right? Like, he wasn't wanted in Brooklyn. They wanted to get rid of him as soon as he walked into that place. And nobody other than Mark Cuban was willing to deal for Kyrie. Maybe LeBron and the Lakers, there was that stuff going on. But I think Kyrie over the last couple of years has figured out maybe it's a good idea to have somebody who could be the alpha.
Yeah,
maybe it's good to have Luka.
There's going to be a real test of that coming up.
I think he learned to shut up a little bit.
But see, he's going to get really tested about that over the course of the next couple of weeks because the focus is going to be entirely on him.
The media is going to prod him.
Absolutely. And so are you going to shut up and be the number 2 guy on your team? Or are you going to go, spotlight's on me, here's my chance, I'm going to single-handedly win a championship, and I'm going to beat Boston in doing that? I could see him absolutely blowing up because people are going to look at it, and
I love it,
and rightfully so, and say, this is a different guy, right? He's a different guy. He's matured. He's finally figured it out. Like you just said, he figured out he's a number 2. Yeah, but, Leopard doesn't really change his spots.
But it would make people more mad if he was quiet, I think.
Well, if he was quiet and winning, if he's quiet and losing, I think people just want to see him lose.
Yeah. And we just got to be ready for a home crowd that's ready to go to the finals.
Like, when you look at their path, we talk about the Celtics' path. They played against the Clippers. The Clippers were damaged goods. Kawhi couldn't play. That team is just it was not a good team by the time they played them in the first round. Oklahoma City obviously had a great regular season, but Kendra just brought it up. A lot of wet behind the ears on that team, right? Like, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's terrific. I've loved him since his time with the Clippers before he got dealt to OKC. But, that's a younger team, and you've got Luka. What people forget is Luka's been playing professional basketball since he was like 12 years old, okay? Like, this dude was playing in big games when he was not able to drive a car. Like, that's a fact. He was playing in top games when he was 15 years old. So people talk about him, he's a closer, because he's had so much experience in those big moments. So they beat OKC in 6 games, which is, it's a good series. And then Minnesota, like I said, it's a really tough matchup for the Timberwolves. Defensively, they can't really step up. What I would be interested in, just to throw it out there for a second, is, what I noticed last night, RJ, is you got Kyrie and you got Luka. They're able to hide those guys against Minnesota defensively because Minnesota's not a great offensive team. So you can put, Luka on Mike Conley and survive. You can put Kyrie on Mike Conley and survive. You can put one of those 2 guys on Jaden McDaniels and survive.
You don't even have to cover Karl Anthony Towns at this point.
Yeah. You're not even worried about Karl. You want Karl Anthony to shoot. You don't have to defend Rudy Gobert. So, defensively, like Dallas's defense looks fantastic right now. But it would be an entirely different set of circumstances playing the Celtics team because you're not going to sit back and let Holiday and White take open threes. And, it's going to be a very difficult challenge for them to defend consistently Tatum and Brown.
It's honestly the better matchup for the Celtics, too, if they play Dallas, because I think that Dallas is a better matchup for them in opposition.
Defensively, I would agree with you. Yeah, Minnesota... I would be concerned when Minnesota beat Denver, and I said this. I tweeted it, even though Dan Lifshatz disagreed with it, my guy Dan. But I tweeted, like, when Minnesota beat Denver, everybody was like, yeah, Celtics, it could be easy. And again, it's about matchups. Minnesota would be a very difficult challenge for the Celtics because they're so big and they're so physical and they grind on the defensive end. They've got Jaden McDaniels to defend Tatum and bother him a little bit. They've got Gobert in the middle. And yes, you could do offensive things like draw them out and shoot threes and stretch the floor. But, they can really be physical and big against the Celtics. And I think that's where the Celtics at times get bogged down offensively.
I so strongly disagree with that.
So strongly disagree. There it is.
All right. We'll find out later this morning who's officiating the game because I'm just thinking about, this 9-10 day layoff before the finals. I'm just wondering, like, does the league have a private jet fueled up to get Scott Foster back and forth between these two series? We need the extender. Get him on speed dial right now. All right, when we come back after Kendra gives us headlines, quick check of what happened in the NHL yesterday, but also a Bruin scored a game-winning and championship-winning goal yesterday, but also dropped some news that may not be great for the Bruins. We'll talk about that, and we'll also get into the Red Sox and Brewers clearing the benches yesterday. But first, Kendra gives us headlines. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy.
Sports Hub headlines.
Good morning, Boston, and happy Memorial Day. Last night in the Western Conference Finals, the Mavericks took a commanding 3-0 series lead over the Timberwolves. Both Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving had 33 points, but P.J. Washington Jr. would get it going to put things away late in the fourth with a tie-breaking three-pointer with 3:38 remaining. Good news for both the Mavericks and the Celtics. No team in NBA playoff history has rallied from 3-0 down. As for your Boston Celtics, they will play a Game 4 tonight against the Pacers in Indiana. It was originally reported that Kristaps Porzingis could come back as early as this game, but has officially been ruled out. Pre-game for tonight will be available right here on the BetMGM Celtics radio network at 7:30 for an 8 o'clock tip. And reigning National League MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. tore his ACL in his left knee last night in a game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had torn the ACL in his opposing knee prior, but Acuna will now obviously miss the remainder of the 2024 season. A huge hit to this Atlanta Braves team after already losing pitcher Spencer Strider earlier this season. And the Red Sox hosted the Milwaukee Brewers this weekend and had a 4-game win streak wiped away by losing all 3 games of this series at home. Yesterday's game got the juices flowing, though, because there was a bench-clearing brawl in the matchup at Fenway Park. The dispute started during the top of the 7th inning when Boston's Chris Martin covered first base on a ground ball by the Brewers' Christian Yelich. As Martin walked back to the dugout, he can be seen making a comment to Milwaukee's first base coach Quentin Berry that compelled Berry to respond angrily. There was no pushing and shoving and no punches thrown in the confrontation, but the Red Sox are back on the field today to take on the Orioles at 1:05. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. You're listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub, Boston's home for sports. I'm Kendra Middleton, and your next update is around 7.
In the office, in your car, in your footy pajamas, this is how Boston sports fans start their day.
I bet you're just jealous.
Toucher and Hardy on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Kulikov has it up the near wall, but the Rangers have it. Gustafsson with a heave on it, scores! Emil is off to something in front, but the Rangers score in overtime, and they take a 2-1 series lead with a 5-4 win.
All right, back here on the Toucher and Hardy program, Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for the guys today. 617-779-0985 if you'd like to join us. That the sounds of a game winner in overtime for the Rangers as they beat the Florida Panthers yesterday to go up 2-1 in the NHL's Eastern Conference Final. I was watching some of this game yesterday, and it is very similar. If you are a Bruins fan and you sat through that series against Florida, it is very similar what the Panthers are doing to the Rangers as to what they did to the Bruins.
Yep.
Yesterday, Florida had 108 shot attempts. The Rangers had 44, and New York won in overtime.
It's unbelievable. And
in the third period, the Panthers had 41 shots attempts to the Rangers 10.
You're so right. I
don't think the Rangers attempted a shot in the last 8 minutes of that game, of regulation yesterday.
I was watching some of that game yesterday. I didn't watch it all, but I was watching some of that game yesterday, and you're so right. Like the forecheck, the inability to get pucks to the net. But with that said, I don't know if you feel the same way, Ryan. But when you're watching this series and you're watching yesterday's game, and you see Bobrovsky, give up 5 goals on 23 shot attempts. It drives me crazy that the Bruins, again, I get it because of how Florida plays, but couldn't get more shots off. And B, they just couldn't finish when they had the opportunity. They had so many chances to get by Bobrovsky, and they just could not do it.
And he looked shaky at times during that series, and they made him look better. They really did.
Yeah.
Last week when Don Sweeney had his season-ending press conference, he talked, as he often does, about, we got to find more secondary scoring and all that. And you do. You need depth in scoring. But the Bruins need primary scoring.
Yeah.
More than they need secondary. You've got Morgan Geekies of the world. You've got, you've Trent Frederick, guys who can score goals, who are playing third and fourth line minutes. You really need more guys who can carry the wagon here.
Yeah.
And that's where their focus needs to be. We talked a lot about it on the hockey show this past weekend as we wrapped up our season, how much they need a real top line center on this team. It's Coyle, love you. Zaka, thanks very much for everything you can do. But neither one of those guys is a driver of a line. Those are guys who are playing setup role to David Pastrnak. That's fine, but what about the other line?
Especially in the postseason, RJ. You look at Zaka. He's got one goal in his postseason career. It took him 21 games to find the back of the net. Right. Coyle, not very productive in the postseason. Each guy had 1 goal in 13 games in the postseason. It's just not good enough. You're rolling out Geeky as your top line center against a team like Florida. Good luck to you. And you kick it forward to Jake DeBrusk, and that's why I think when you look at DeBrusk, and I understand, we all want more from Jake. That's been the story of his Bruins career. We all want more. We want him to finish those chances that he had against Bobrovsky that we just brought up a little while ago. But say what you want about Jake DeBrusk. He does show up in the postseason.
Jake DeBrusk shows up when his back is against the wall.
Yeah, and so if you're
for a contract, that's when Jake DeBrusk shows up.
When you look at, I think Ty Anderson had this going back a week or so ago. Jake DeBrusk in the last 3 years, in the last 3 postseasons, he's in the top 30 when you look at points per game. He's just, I think he's 0.75, 0.78, so, and we're talking about some of the better players in the league. So I'm not telling you that DeBrusk is awesome. Don't get it twisted. But what I'm saying is what you just mentioned, when you've got Zaka, when you've got Coyle, when you've got Geeky, you've got these guys, and you're already struggling for scoring. When you get into the postseason, to have a Jake DeBrusk at your disposal is not the worst thing in the world. You need as many productive dudes as you can get.
So much about the Bruins offseason, especially over the course of the next month, is going to be like, are they going to keep him here? Are they going to extend themselves to keep him on this roster? And I get that there's some holes there.
Yeah.
There just are. Consistency wise, it's just not there.
Yep.
But for the guys of his ilk, where you're going to be, probably in the neighborhood of $6 million a year over 6 years. I said it on the hockey show on Saturday. 6 times 6, I'm doing it. If he's willing to do that, yes.
That's a deal for him, I think.
I asked Billy Jaffe, and do you think would he do 6 times 6? He says, I think he might get a better offer than that.
I just don't think he loves it here. That's the difference. I think that the fans here have really turned him off to wanting to be in Boston just because of how polarizing he has been as a player, and the fans obviously have kind of eaten that up a bit.
He said last week, and if he's being honest about it, he said that he's prioritizing winning. Like, that it's not necessarily going to be about the best contract. So if he's going to prioritize winning,
yeah,
and that cuts the league, cuts the number of suitors in, pretty much in half. Because who's legitimate Stanley Cup contenders in the league?
Right.
And then you got to find which among those teams actually has the cap space to add on a guy who's going to get, $5-6+ million a year. It's like that shrinks his window down quite a bit if he's being honest about that. And he's not willing to go to, San Jose. He's not willing to go to Ottawa. He doesn't want to go to, Utah.
Utah.
I know it sounds weird just to say that.
It does sound weird.
I have a crazy proposition for you.
Oh.
As a big hockey guy, RJ, what would you say if you packaged together Linus Ullmark and Jake DeBrusk and something else for Leon Draisaitl if they don't make a Stanley Cup? Because that would help both teams a lot. Edmonton needs a goalie.
That's that would be a big swing.
I think that's the perfect situation for both teams.
I think that's asking a lot. We don't see. Trades like that just don't happen at that.
The one thing I would say
that often, but I do think certainly the Ullmark trade is on the table. I think I'm interested in. There was an article that came out a few days ago up in Ottawa about their interest in Ullmark. Apparently they were, sniffing around him at the trade deadline. It didn't work, whether there was a veto involved there, whether he's on Ullmark's no-trade list or whatever.
You can't play soccer in Ottawa with the kids. Can't do it.
Right. But it also is, another one that came out the other day from Elliot Friedman up there was Carolina had a lot of interest in Ullmark. And when I saw the possibility, because they're, looks like about to have a breakup with Nachas, it's like, that's a nice fit.
That would be that team. If they didn't win a Stanley Cup and they made that move, that would be absolutely disgusting. Because when Carolina traded for Jake Gensel earlier this year, I've said it time and time again, that was the move of the deadline for me. I thought that was what was going to put this Carolina team over. He can contribute to the scoring that you get with Svechnikov and Aho. I really thought that it was a done deal for them. And the fact that that's what makes me nervous about the Rangers is that if they have the Canes under their belt, that's kind of, oof.
But Carolina the one thing that Carolina doesn't really have shored up is who their goaltender is.
Exactly, yeah.
So, if Ullmark can be happy, again, we don't know what is, who's on his new trade list. What a Swede
want to live in Carolina, though. Respectfully, as a Southerner, I think that's my nightmare.
From what I've heard, his big thing, I guess, one of his big things is he just wants to be within, decent flying distance of going home.
Yeah.
And so he's still on the East Coast. Raleigh-Durham's a, decent-sized airport. You can probably get a nice direct flight out of there back home.
There is Waffle House.
Linus, may come to us and change his mind.
Yeah, I don't think he... Look, he wants to be here.
Yeah,
but that's a problem.
Yeah,
they need to move his $5 million if they're going to have a successful offseason.
Yeah, a couple things. Blackburn's been on that too. The Carolina possibility. I know Pete Blackburn's tweeted that a couple times as a possible idea, and I'm with you about Ullmark. That's priority number one, and they've got to do it before the draft. If you can deal him before the draft, which is about 4 or 5 weeks away, if you can get Ullmark dealt before that draft. And you can get some at least draft capital, because right now they got no draft capital to work with. So try to make that deal ASAP, get the money off your books, and then you'd have about 25, 26 million projected cap space. And now you can make some moves. I think the interesting question, the Draisaitl stuff you brought up, Kendra, and I saw Fluto Shinzawa write about this last week. And it's a fascinating question of what Sweeney would do. But do you take the risk and do you actually kick the can down the road till next offseason and target Draisaitl as a free agent and roll with Matty Patra and maybe
I don't think you
a
can
fill-in-the-gap guy? I know.
If you want the capital, you're going to have to deal Swayman, but I don't think that Bruins fans are ready to have that conversation.
I think the idea is to, what Fluto's putting out there is maybe bide your time a little bit, because if you spend the money on, say, Lindholm, if that's one of your targets this offseason, then you're pretty much completely out of Draisaitl. And Draisaitl's really good friends with Pasta, so is there back channels? That's what I would wonder. Like if I might be willing to take that risk if there were back channels, which we know happens all the time. If there's back channels with Pasta and Draisaitl, and there's a little bit of, hey man, just wait it out, then you might want to wait it out.
They're not going to let him walk without getting anything for him, though. That's the issue. There's no way. And if I'm a Bruins fan, if you're going to tell me you're rolling out Charlie Coyle and Matt Patra, I'm going to be like, what the hell are we doing?
That's the issue, is that you would have to live with that idea.
This is Boston. Like, this isn't...
Yeah, you would have to live with that idea.
You also kind of wonder, like, all right, how much leash does management have? How much leash does Montgomery have to be able to do that? And say, we're just going to go into another season where, expectations aren't necessarily Stanley Cup. I mean, look at the way that they all spoke about this year. It's like, okay, yeah, we're disappointed that we didn't win, but... we're proud of what we did this year. It's like, okay, we can't do that next year. You can't be sitting here a year from now going, okay, now we're going to take a swing at getting our franchise centerman.
Right.
It's like, no.
This is a hockey town.
No, I wouldn't do it. I'm just saying that's what Fluto said. Do you kick the can down the road with that idea? And if you have some kind of okay from Draisaitl in the back rooms, look, Edmonton... The only thing is, if you're Edmonton and you're making a run, then you're not getting rid of Draisaitl, right? So they've got to make. It
depends, though, because if you think about the Stanley Cup, you need a goalie to win a cup, and they don't have the goalie.
Speaking of, by the way, Bruins franchise players, you're not going to hear the name of one of them here, but he scored the game-winning goal yesterday.
Here's Kondratek back across. Spacek scores. David Spacek opens the scoring.
No, he didn't. That was David Pastrnak.
How's that happen? You called hockey?
It's kind of frantic. You don't know. I'm guessing that game was taking place in the Czech Republic. There's a decent chance he was calling that from a monitor somewhere. Wasn't actually at the game, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. But that was David Pastrnak scoring what was the game winner as Czechia beat Switzerland yesterday. 2-0 was the final score to win the World Championships on their home ice, by the way. Huge day for David Pastrnak. Congratulations to him. Pavel Zacha was also playing on that team. So,
there you go, Pavel.
They get gold medals.
He was on the team.
He was?
I think you're being too nice for the play-by-play guy, by the way. That's like being nice to a fellow play-by-play hockey guy. Like it's clearly Pasta. And it's like the perfect.
It's tough to miss the 88 on his back.
It's the perfect Pasta setup one-timer like you've seen a billion times. I don't know how you can David Spacek! Monitor or not, I don't know how you can botch that call.
So that's all good, all well and good, and congratulations to them because it's a big goal, big win. The whole country's losing their minds. I saw, photographs of Pastrnak on giant billboards in Prague and all that. Yes, great. Then we find out after the game in an interview that you got to run through Google Translate.
Yeah,
because it's printed in Czech.
Not Kendra, you know Czech, right?
Oh,
you get that down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I scroll down through this here a little bit, he's asked, did you come to the World... Now, again, this is Google Translate, so it's going to be a little choppy here. Did you come to the World Championship in good health? Pastrnak says, no, I have a hip. We'll see what happens.
Nice.
Before the championship, I was told I would definitely have to have surgery.
Great.
Hip surgery?
Love it. Why is he playing?
That was my... Thank you. That was my...
What the hell are we doing?
Because it's on home ice in the Czech Republic. I'm guessing that's the only reason that they would say, oh, yeah, go ahead and go play a few games. Like, what's it really going to hurt
You
at
think
this
he's
point?
off the tour at all?
Well, no, I don't. Because let me finish the quote. We need to hire whoever Professor Kolar is, because it says, before the championship, I was told I would definitely have to have surgery. But what Professor Kolar demonstrated here with me,
God.
I owe him a big thank you. I haven't felt this good in 8 months. I don't know what kind of magic hands he has.
Park 30. I just popped a Park 30.
But I really
Those
haven't
magic
skated
hands.
as well as I did in the World Championships in a long time. So this guy, Mr. Miyagi, Kendra, do you even get that
Yes,
reference?
I do.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, she watches the Netflix.
I don't
show.
have Netflix.
So
Wow.
So this guy,
That's weird.
Professor Kola, has magic hands and has Pasternak feeling
He's
as good
just
as
Alex
he had.
Guerrero for pasta.
So they ask him, are you still at risk of surgery? And he says, we'll see. Mr. Kolar says no, so I will believe him.
I don't know if
So
it's...
the Bruins medical staff is telling him he needs hip surgery, but Professor Kolar
He's
says,
Alex Guerrero.
don't worry about it. You're good.
I don't know if it's Kolar's hands or what were in the hands of Kolar when taking care of pasta.
Wow.
That's
not good news, because remember last year, now it was double hip surgery for Marchand, a little bit of a different situation, but hip surgery during the offseason means you're off the ice, right? You're not getting your normal training. Marchand, it took him the better part of all of last year before he said he felt better.
Yeah.
Like that's a scary thing of, thinking about the Bruins potentially going in to next year with Pasternak either sidelined or not 100% is not good.
Well, I think we might have a conversation with Peter Asness, MD, who is the team physician for the Boston Bruins. He might be looking for a gig because Professor Kolar and his magic hands might have to be here in Boston permanently
If
with
you're a
with
doctor,
pasta.
why are you getting called professor? I don't.
Well, that's Google Translate. It's probably more
Okay.
like,
Boston Bruins.
All right, we got to get to a break. We'll get headlines with Kendra, Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for the guys today here on Toucher and Hardy.
Stay tuned.
Good morning, Boston. Last night in the Western Conference Finals, the Mavericks took a commanding 3-0 series lead over the Timberwolves. Both Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving had 33 points, but PJ Washington Jr. would get it going to put things away late in the fourth with a tie-breaking three-pointer with 3:38 remaining. Good news for both the Mavericks and the Celtics. No team in NBA playoff history has rallied back from 3-0 down in a series. As for your Boston Celtics, they will play a Game 4 tonight against the Pacers in Indiana. It was originally reported that Kristaps Porzingis could come back as early as this game, but has officially been ruled out. Pre-game for tonight will be available right here on the BetMGM Celtics radio network at 7:30 for an 8 p.m. tip. And reigning National League MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. tore his ACL in his left knee last night in a game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had torn the ACL in his opposite knee prior, but Acuna will now obviously miss the remainder of the 2024 season. A huge hit to this team after already losing pitcher Spencer Strider earlier this season. The Red Sox hosted the Milwaukee Brewers this weekend at Fenway Park. Yesterday's game got the juices flowing, and there was a bench-clearing brawl between the two sides. The dispute started during the top of the seventh inning when Boston's Chris Martin covered first base on a ground ball by the Brewers' Christian Yelich. As Martin walked back to the dugout, he can be seen making a comment to Milwaukee's first base coach Quentin Berry that compelled Berry to respond angrily. There was no pushing and shoving and no punches thrown in the confrontation. And the Red Sox are back on the field today at 1:05 to take on the Orioles. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. You're listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub, Boston's home for sports, and your next update is around 7:30.
It's not just the games. It's the preseason, the postseason, the drafts, the trades, front office drama, the locker room banter, and you talking all about
blah, 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 blah.
On Boston's home for sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Is elongating.
Weekday morning.
Here goes Hardy.
Dutcher and Hardy.
I no longer love them.
Let's go. Let's ride.
98.5.
Like, let's roll the dice.
Sports Hub.
Ground ball to first. Snagged by Smith. Martin again runs the drill. And despite getting a guy down to third base, they can't bring him in. We're tied 1-1 in the middle of the seventh.
Who's the first base coach?
Too much Megan Thee Stallion for you yesterday.
True.
There are tens of people listening right now who are disappointed.
As they should be.
Red Sox win 2-1 yesterday, but the big news coming out of that is the bench is clear.
Yeah.
With the first base coach of all people.
Quentin Berry, this guy. What are we doing? First base coach.
Who's the first base coach?
I'll tell you, Lou. Quentin Berry, okay, wants fisticuffs on Memorial Day weekend because Chris Martin, I guess, was a little perturbed that the Brewers attempted 2 bunts against him in the same inning or whatever it was. And so he was talking underneath his breath. And Quentin Berry all of a sudden becomes Hulk Hogan at first base and wants a cage match in the middle of a baseball game.
Your job at first as the first base coach is basically to collect all the paraphernalia that batters wear. It's like, okay, here's your elbow brace, here's your shin guard, all that stuff. You just hang on to that until we get back to the dugout, okay? I mean, that's the extent of it. This guy's trying to start fights with the Red Sox pitcher. So Martin just basically said something along the lines of, like, why don't you guys swing the bat?
Yeah.
Like, that's all it was?
Pretty much. Martin said it had to do how, he had something to say about how the inning went, how they approached the inning or something like that, and people could figure it out if they'd like to. But, yeah, first base coach, just get back to the dugout.
I probably said some things under my breath.
I kind of love it.
I loved Andrew Bailey.
So
See, Bailey? Bailey ran out and was like, he wanted some of that too. He wanted the smoke. He got Martin out of the way. It was like, let's go.
So I'm trying to figure out, though. So you're a pitcher.
Yeah.
The opposing team is bunting against you.
Yeah.
And it's not working, by the way.
Yeah.
What's he upset about?
I don't know.
Like,
maybe
maybe it's me. I'd much rather have the Brewers bunting against me than trying to hit the ball out of the yard. Thanks very much.
Maybe he didn't think they were competing. I don't know.
I'll take the free outs. You're 0 for 2 in this series. Like, your starting pitchers have been absolutely obliterated in those 2 games. Like, hey, if they want to give you free outs, take them.
Heat of the moment.
When a coach gets mad.
They bunted twice. You see, they bunted there at the end of the game. I don't know.
There he is. See, they bunted at the end. He said they bunted twice and then they bunted at the end of the game.
They weren't trying to break up a no-hitter with a bunt. I know that's like one of those unwritten rules of baseball. You can't do that.
Stop bunting. Stop being.
I didn't like it.
Swing away.
So
you got two hardos. You got a hardo pitcher who's mad at bunting, and then you have a hardo first base coach who's getting angry at the pitcher for being angry at bunting.
So
it's the most petty, ridiculous argument in the history of baseball.
We're upset that the opponent isn't manly enough?
I didn't like it.
Obviously.
Just get some hair on your chest, huh? Why don't you swing away?
Well, I'll tell you what then,
Be a man.
Chris, maybe, if you didn't like it, why are you saying things under your breath? Be a man and speak up.
Say it with your chest.
Say it out loud. Put some bass in your voice. Let's go.
Just throw your hat down and yell, "Stop bunting." Just lose your mind on the field.
It is what it is. I'll let him know.
I let him know. Like, okay, so now.
Did you really, though? Because you had to say it under your breath. So did you or did you not?
So at first I was disgusted at Quentin Berry, but now I'm getting a little frustrated with Chris Martin too. Like, what are we doing? I let him know. Okay, all right, okay. What?
I probably said some things under my breath, but I let him know.
Nobody.
That's like that sounds like like a kid who's I let my parents know. You just walk away muttering. What'd you say?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kendra said this. We were talking during the break. It's like baseball players. Every once in a while, a guy will go out there with some intentions, right? Like I'll never forget Izzy Alcantara karate kicking the catcher at McCoy Stadium when I was younger in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Okay, like some dudes do want the noise and they're willing to scrap, but 95% of these baseball quote unquote clear the benches. Like, I don't even want to say brawls because nothing ever happens. Kerfuffles, as Judge Judy would say. Like, well, these guys don't want anything.
It was a real brouhaha.
They're not going to, like, Jason Varitek went barreling out like the softball coach to get in the way because he knows Quentin Berry. It's like he's trying to talk him down.
The Kelly fight.
We have a bunch of 45 and 50-year-old men dressed in baseball uniforms yelling at each other over bunting because Quentin Berry, the first base coach, I don't know, had some kind of meltdown.
I don't know. I feel like this league, swing the bat. That's it.
I wish they did fight.
Swing the bat. That's it.
They probably both deserve to get punched in the face. They should just punch each other and call it a day.
Right? Yeah. At least
each guy gets a haymaker and then just walk off.
Throw it.
In a game like that, I think if you swing and do something good, you get a run. Why not? What the hell? Who cares?
And Nesson is because this is a thing now. They can't wait to get off the air to get to the break, right? Like,
yeah, you have to.
It's and there's a fly ball at center field, third out, and boom, right off, right? It takes so they couldn't even show it. So what you saw, I was watching the game at the time, and as Martin's coming off of the field, you can see kind of the very beginning of him and Berry, and then they have to go quickly to the break. And then so they had to come back, and O'Brien's trying to explain what happened to show the footage. Ooh.
New rule: if the bench is clear, somebody has to throw a punch.
I like that. You know what they should do? They should have a substitute punch thrower. Like one dude who just goes out there and just throws.
I want
from each team. They
like
just
a
fight.
DH for a punch.
Yeah, fight on the pitcher's mound. Just
I want
fight.
I want NHL rules. You want to charge the mound. You want to get into a fight on the base paths or whatever. Fine, but there's no third man in. There's no bench clearing brawls. Like mano a mano.
I like it.
Say it with your chest.
Drop the glove and let's have at it.
All right, let me ask you this, both of you. Which Red Sox are you taking in a fight? The guy on the roster right now that you would look at and
answer.
Go. I know what you're going to say, I bet you.
What?
Tyler O'Neill.
No, I was going to say Jarren Duran.
Oh, Jared Duran. Okay. I could see that.
He's got tattoos and a mustache now. I feel like he, you know what I mean?
Hold on. That's it?
Yeah.
That's all you need is tattoos and a mustache.
He looks like he could take a punch, too. It's not just about throwing punches. It's can you take one in response.
That's you got to have a chin.
Thank
Kendra.
you.
You got to have a chin.
And he does.
Well, you don't know that. You're guessing he does.
I can look at the man.
You can know if a man has a chin by look.
Yeah.
He has a big chin.
Yeah. He's got a good jawline.
So he's got a big good jawline.
Maybe cut somebody's hand on it.
Tattoos and a mustache, so he's ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, could you give me a better answer than that?
Do you think
Ryan, can you give her a better answer?
Something came into my head. Do you think Tristan Casas with all of his sunbathing and no, wait. See, like he comes off as, kind of
a little soft.
Imagine getting
little
clocked
mellow
when he has the white nail polish.
But a lot of times those people, if you flip the switch, become somebody that you don't expect.
Yo.
What if Rafael Devers out of nowhere was an ass kicker?
No. He's such a teddy
Devers have
bear.
the weight advantage over a lot of the league.
Hey, Kenley Jansen, I think, is like one of those quiet dudes who would just walk over to somebody and knock them out.
No, I don't see it. I really don't. I would love if Tristan Casas, for some reason, could, go out there and show us something, because there was nothing I love more than being able to talk crap to someone who just took a sucker punch from a dude who paints his nails.
Hold on, Pavetta. When he has those like crazy, like screaming, like psychotic episodes when he runs off the mound, he might not be a great fighter, but he might rip somebody's eyeballs out.
So you want like the scratching nail kind of fighter?
No, I want a fighter, but I'm saying
you need to have the crazy guy.
Yeah, every once in a while you got to get a little crazy.
In a baseball fight, it helps to have the guy who's a little bit off his right. Like Chris Sale was a good
when
one
he
for
ripped
that.
the TV off the
Yeah,
wall
like
in the
when you grab the guy who grabs the bat and goes after the water cooler, and like that's the guy you want on your side, because that guy's going to lose his stuff.
I agree, only because that's me in society.
I just you need a little dirt every once in a while. That's all I'm gonna say. Like if you got somebody who's psychotic, that's tough.
All right, so final answer. Who's your guy? I'm sticking with Jarren Duran.
I'm going with the complete opposite. I'm going with the quiet guy. I'm going with Kenley Jansen.
RJ.
Man, this is tough.
Sade and Rafaela.
Will you Abreu? No. All right, we got
Connor Wong. He's got a low center of gravity.
All right, we're going to move on. We'll get back into some of the NBA. Celtics getting ready for Game 4 tonight. Foregone conclusion that the NBA Finals pretty much almost set. 3-0 in both the East and the West. We'll talk more about what's been going on with the Celtics coming up next. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy.
so much that he's underrated. It's that he's just not liked because of his, quote, I am better than you attitude. He knows it. It's the same reason he is not as marketable as he should be. That's what an NBA source just sent me. I don't know that to be the case. I like Jaylen Brown. I know a lot of people that like Jaylen Brown. But, again, when you think about marketability, that's what that person was alluding to.
Beaten. Like it.
Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, and Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy here on this Memorial Day. Stephen A. Smith. They're talking about
marketable
Jaylen Brown and his marketability. There's been some things over the course of the last week, and I got to say I'm a little disappointed with what you sent last night.
Oh,
Jaylen
I'm
Brown.
Sorry.
Jaylen Brown responded to
I apologize.
because I didn't want him to respond to that comment.
Yes.
But there have been some things here over the course of the last week that have increased my likability of Jaylen Brown. And one of them was Stephen A. Smith getting that from an NBA source, whoever that NBA source might have been, saying Jaylen Brown has this I'm better than you attitude, and that he's not seemingly well-liked around the league.
Marketability.
And that his marketability factor is down because he's got an attitude, to which I say, I want that.
Good. Nobody on this team has one.
I want that. For as great a player as Jason Tatum is, and he thinks he's a little better than he is, but for as great a player as he is, the thing that's missing most from Jason Tatum, and it's ironic because he idolized Kobe, of all people, is that he doesn't have that killer attitude. Jaylen Brown, I feel like, has that, and that's what Stephen A. is talking about. He doesn't have to be the most popular guy in the league. He doesn't care that he's not the most popular guy in the league.
Yeah.
I feel like he's got it in him that step out on the court, no friends out here. Like, we're going to, we're out here to win. We're not out here to make all-star teams. When he was asked last week, and this is what started it in my mind, is when he was asked about the all-NBA teams after the game, he says, I don't have time to give an F about that.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to hear from a star in the Eastern Conference Final is, I don't care about the awards. I'm here to win a championship.
We can get to Tatum later because that will send me down a road, and I will just say that I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the Tatum doesn't have the dog mentality stuff. I think that's a crock. But I want to focus on Jaylen because I think it does a disservice to Jaylen to bring Jason into the conversation right now. And I wrote about this at Boston Sports Journal last Friday, Ryan. Jaylen Brown is underappreciated. He's been overlooked, and for some people, for whatever reason, whether it's, he jumps off of tweets from Kyrie back in the day or whatever it is, his, turnovers against Miami last year in the Eastern Conference Finals when he had to be the guy. I love Jaylen, and I've loved Jaylen. You can go back to when I was working with Adam Jones at night, and we were having conversations about Jamal Murray or Jaylen Brown. I would have taken Jamal Murray, but I loved Jaylen Brown. And I always go back to one story that I read before that draft process went through in its entirety. When I read that Jaylen Brown was working out with Jimmy Butler, and he was getting up at like 6 a.m., and he was running on the beach and doing all of these things. And I just read a story on Jaylen back then when he was coming out for the draft about how he was just nonstop work ethic, grind it out, embrace challenges. That's who he is. And I think I don't care if he doesn't have friends in the league. What I care about is the guy improving? Is he putting work in? And it's clear. Jaylen Brown has gotten better every single year of his NBA career. Every year. Every year he improves on something. Now, I'm not saying he takes a giant leap every year, but every single year he gets better. We're in like year 8 now. You don't do that, RJ, unless you're working your ass off. And I think that's just his mentality, which is I'm just going to focus on what I can control, and I'm going to do what I can do, and I'm not really worried about everybody else. And that helps him. And I'd also say this, Kendra. I think it works when people try to split Jaylen and Jason for a number of years before they get to the finals in 2022. I think it fits. Their personalities fit because Jason is laid back at times, and many people would say too much. I think Jason has that killer in him, but it's not as, he doesn't emote as much as Jaylen, and he doesn't kind of just, bring that air about him. These guys feed off of each other, and I think that makes both of them better. I think Jason is better because of Jaylen, and I think Jaylen is better because of Jason.
My thing is, if you put JB's attitude and Jason Tatum, I think that they would be the best player to ever play basketball. But the issue for me is I'm not with you on the Tatum thing because I've yet to see it. And until you show it to me, I'm a believer, and I believe in what you show me.
All right, so we're going to get into this. The Tatum dog mentality thing's a bunch of crap. It's a bunch of crap. And this idea that he's not a closer is also not true. People have PTSD from the Warriors series. That's all this is. It goes back to the finals in 2022 when he had a terrible series. Dog mentality. Game 3 on the road. He said this in the postgame the other night. I love Game 3s on the road because the crowd's going crazy, because the team is going to play their best that you're going against. I love it. Do you know in Game 3s throughout his career, he's 23-7-4? Since 2020, he's 25-9-5. When you look at his career record in Game 3s on the road, he's 9-5. His record since 2020 on the road, Game 3 in the playoffs, is 7-3.
I don't give a crap what
How
your
about Game
mentality
7s?
is, though. When you win a ring, you can start talking.
Well, but that's so unfair.
Not
it's
really.
so unfair.
Not really. This team
it
has
really
been there
is.
enough.
It really is.
And that's the thing,
so,
too. He's not even the MVP on his own team. It was probably Porzingis this year if he was healthy.
All right, first of all, when you look at the long chain of people that win championships, they don't win until 27-28. You can go through everybody. Everybody. The best of the best of all time. LeBron James didn't win until he was 27-28 when he joined Dwayne Wade, who is a top 75 player of all time, future Hall of Famer. Kevin Durant didn't win until he went to Golden State with Steph Curry. Steph Curry didn't win until he was 27-28. Jokic didn't win until he was 27-28. We have so many unreasonable expectations for Jason Tatum to conquer the mountain that he has yet to conquer at such a young age. The dude at 19 years old in his rookie season brought this team to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron James and played one of his best games in the postseason that year against LeBron. In Game 7, he's 5-2.
The difference is that all of these guys that you're talking about that have won championships at the age that they're at right now didn't have all the chances that they've had to go there. And 2, they've been the best player on their team undoubtedly through all of those postseasons. And you cannot say that about.
But doesn't that say about how good he is? That at that young age he has helped them get to Eastern Conference Finals. That he did get them to the finals. So let me get this straight. So
where's the ring?
Because he's actually been more successful at a young age. It's bad. Because he's been more successful. Because he's won more. His record in the first 104 games in the postseason, right there with Kevin Durant and LeBron James.
But I don't care about that. This is Boston.
But you care about winning, don't you?
I'm not a Celtics fan, but what I'm saying is all this stuff is fine and dandy, but until you win a ring, who cares?
What I'm saying is, in a world where I understand that point. But what I'm saying to you is, it's really hard to win a championship in the NBA. And usually the best at the very tippity top, the best guys in the game at that time are usually winning. Is Jason Tatum a top 3 guy?
So let me ask you this. What's holding them back if it's not his attitude and his let's get this done now and let's get out of here?
He's 5-2 in Game 7s. He's 5-2 in Game 7.
But that's not my question. My question is, if it's not...
It has to directly do with your question. What you're saying is that they're not winning big games. They're not winning enough in the postseason because Jason Tatum is holding them down.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say those exact words, but that's what you're saying. That's exactly what
you're putting words in my mouth. That's not what I'm saying.
You just said... If they don't win a championship, then how's that not on Jason Tatum holding them down?
I'm saying they haven't won a championship because he's not the big dog on the team and he needs to be.
What's the big dog? He's a walking 25-10-5 in the playoffs. He's a walking 25, 10, and 5. He plays both ends of the floor. They run their offense through him. He's 5-2 in Game 7s. He's 7-3 in his last 10.
Is he your MVP right now of this team this postseason?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's not. Come on, be for real. Be so for real right now.
Okay, why? Because you're.
It's JB.
Because you're going to pay attention to the counting stats, right? That's what you're doing.
I've watched the games.
Is Jaylen Brown as good without Jason Tatum?
Yeah, actually, this season, yes.
I don't think neither one of them is as good without the other.
Jason Tatum.
The biggest strength of this team is that if you try to take away Tatum, you've got Brown to go for 40. If you try to take away Brown, you've got Tatum to go for a big night. That's the biggest strength of this team.
That's the biggest strength of this team because they've been able to spread that out all season. If it's not Jason, it's Jaylen. If it's not them, it's Porzingis. If it's not them, it's Derek White. If it's not them, it's Peyton Pritchard. That's the strength of this team.
Okay, so the whole Jaylen Brown's the best player in the postseason. Let me smash that for a second. Because
I didn't say he was the best player in the postseason.
The best player
on this
for the Celtics.
Team.
Yeah. Let me shut that down. So first of all, he runs the offense. That's number one. Jaylen doesn't. So he's responsible for running the offense. That's number one. He's getting doubled. He's facing hedges. He's facing blitzes. He's facing high pickup points. He is running the offense. Jaylen Brown's offense is directly off of Jason Tatum's creative ability and what he does as a playmaker. Number two, Jason Tatum plays both ends of the floor like Jaylen does, but Jason Tatum is a better rebounder than Jaylen. He's a better playmaker than Jaylen. He's walking 25, 10, and 5.
They wouldn't even be in this spot if it weren't for Jaylen Brown being called to make that three-pointer the other night, potentially, because he missed the first 3 shots.
And they wouldn't be
I'm not done.
And then Tatum scores 10 in overtime.
He missed the first 3 shots that he took ahead of that to put that game away. He missed all 3 of them, which is why they went away from him and went to Jaylen in the first place.
Okay, great. But the third quarter existed when Tatum was out there and built the 12-point lead, and then Missoula took him out. And what happened?
Okay, and then in the following game, it took him to the fourth quarter to get there.
I'm not finished. And then they come back, right? What happened at the end of the third quarter of that game? We all want to pay attention to the one shot that Jason missed, which was a fadeaway.
You can lick his boots if you want. That's fine.
You're going to let me finish?
Now you want to go there.
Well, you wanted me to let you finish, which I did. So
did you?
Yeah, I did. So when Tatum, right, in the third quarter, when Tatum leads this team to a double-digit lead against Indiana in Game 1, and then Missoula takes him out with about 2:40 left, and Indiana goes on a 14-2 run, that stuff matters. We always want to treat the final possession as the end-all, be-all, and nobody's going to be happy unless Jason Tatum goes 4-4 in the final 3 minutes of a game and doesn't make any mistakes whatsoever, and he's absolutely perfect. That's what people want. They want perfection. Jaylen Brown was put in the spot in Game 7 last year against Miami to beat Jason Tatum. How'd it work out? 8 turnovers. How'd it work out? Because he can't do it. They have strengths. Jason Tatum's overall game and his ability to defend, rebound, create, score. Why do you think Anthony Edwards ran out of gas? It's because he was asked to do what Tatum does every single night.
I think you're also disrespecting Drew Holiday a bit in this postseason as well, giving Jason an MVP over him at this point.
Jason Tatum, in his last 6 games, in this postseason, the postseason that you say Jaylen Brown's their best player, last 6 games, Jason Tatum, 31 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists a game. He's a plus 10 on average, night in and night out. What do you want from him? 31, 10, and 6, plus 10 every night. What more can the guy do?
I want him to not miss 3 shots in a row to put a game away.
He's going to miss shots. All right, you want to do that? Let's play that game because I got the percentages. So, percentages. Ready, RJ? I'm going to ask RJ. Jason Tatum, career shooter, 44%, 35% from 3 in the postseason. What do you think Luka's percentages are before last night?
I don't care about careers. I care about this series. RJ, who is your MVP on this team in the postseason right now?
Kendra, you just made the point that I don't want him to miss shots pretty much. So field goal percentage and 3-point percentage is directly to answer that criticism. Tatum shoots 44% and 35% in respective categories in the postseason. Luka's at 46 and 35%. Do you know what Steph Curry shoots in the playoffs over his career? 45% from the field. That's reality. We can buy into the 2 or 3 plays that we remember about Jason Tatum and get frustrated about narratives. The reality is Jason Tatum shoots roughly the same as a lot of top players in the NBA when it gets to the postseason. Why is that? Because postseason defense is much tougher. You're playing a game 7 times against the same team. That team is ratcheting it up. That they're going to give more pressure. They're going to be more honed in on what you do as a basketball team. When you look at Jason Tatum and what he's done, he's not far off from the very best in the game. If he goes and wins the championship this year, then everybody will all of a sudden say, oh, well, he's a great postseason player, whatever they'll say. What I'm saying is these games count. And when a guy goes, 31, 10, and 6 in the last 6 games, people forget. They go bananas about what he did on Saturday night. They forget that against Cleveland in Game 3, he went out there and destroyed it. He destroyed it in Game 3.
Who would your MVP be right now?
I would lean toward Brown, but it's a lean. I mean, it's, again, I think neither one is better. Neither one would be as good without the other. And I think that's the best dynamic that you can have in the NBA is that you're not relying on the same guy every single night. This way, I got to tell you, hell of a Jaylen Brown segment. We were,
I know. I didn't want to get into Tatum, and I got dragged into Tatum. Well, all I'll say is
that
you
got dragged.
My closing.
Oh no!
Right,
no!
My closing
by
argument,
the hair, drug.
My closing argument is this: when Indiana is sitting in their hotel room today, the number one guy they're trying to take out of the game is Jason Tatum. It ain't Jaylen Brown, and that's for every series. They get to the finals. The Dallas Mavericks coaching staff, number one on the top of the list is what do we do to slow down Jason Tatum? Jaylen Brown, as much as I love him, he ain't making that play to Al Horford the other night. And not many dudes can. There's literally maybe a handful of guys who are 6'9" that can make that play that Tatum made on Saturday night to Al Horford.
All right, we got to get to headlines. We will continue.
Take that.
Yeah, so there. Wow. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton, who's going to give us Sports Hub headlines right now, and then we're back with more here on Toucher and Hardy.
Sports Hub headlines.
Good morning, Boston. Last night in the Western Conference Finals, the Mavericks took a 3-0 series lead over the T-Wolves. Both Luka and Kyrie had 33 points, but P.J. Washington Jr. would get it going to put things away late in the fourth with a tie-breaking three-pointer with 3:38 remaining.
The Sports Hub.
Twitch feed of this is going to be used all around the internet.
Get up.
The cat is finally out of the bag.
Get up. We're back. Toucher and Hardy. Get up.
98.5 The Sports Hub.
Did we just happen, did that Jaylen Brown cut just happen to come up in the rotation? Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy here on this Memorial Day. As I was bringing up at the beginning of the last segment, Jaylen Brown, ladies and gentlemen, before we got into Jason Tatum back and forth. Jaylen Brown, to me, is, again, I loved his answer last week when he was asked about the All-NBA team. He's like, I just don't give an F. Like, the man's he's got his $300 million, right?
Yep.
He's got it. He's got his money. Stephen A. Smith, which is what we started this conversation off with, talking about, why Jaylen Brown isn't more marketable. And he said, League Source tells him it's because he's got this I'm better than you attitude. I want my stars to have that.
Honestly, I don't got the time to give a
Yeah. I want him to not care about that stuff. I want him because, listen, I'm not trying to pit the two of them against each other, but they have very different personalities, very different attitudes toward things. When you hear about Jason Tatum thinking about wanting to be the face of the NBA, it's like, I don't want your focus to be there. I want your focus to be on winning championships, plural. I want your focus to, it's the rest of that stuff comes with that. Like if you go out and win titles and you are the best player on the best team in the league, the endorsements follow, the shoe deals follow, like the accolades follow, the MVPs, all of that comes with that. You don't have to ask for it. You don't have to beg for it. It's like Jaylen Brown, I look at him and go, that's a man who's focused on the task at hand. And again, they're just two different personalities, and this is more of the hockey guy in me. It's more like, I don't want guys who need to be friends with everybody. I don't need you to hug it out with everybody before and after every game. I don't need you to go out. Like, you're in the playoffs. Focus on your job. Focus on your task. Go win a title. And then you want to go out and hang out with guys in the offseason and go do whatever, hey, that's fine. But
I want guys to be genuine. That's all I want. Like, be yourself. Be who you are. And so Jaylen and Jason are definitely two different people. And I think, again, they feed off of each other well. A lot of this stuff it was said about Nikola Jokic before he won a championship, which was like, oh, does he take things seriously? He's more focused on his horses and all. And Jokic cares. When he goes out there, he plays hard. And, like, I understand why.
I mean, talk about a genuine guy, though. Like, what's one of the first things he says after he wins a title is, "I can't wait to get home to see my horses."
And I think one of the things about Jaylen that I love about the guy is that, again, he is just genuine, and he's not going to sit there and say things because you want him to say certain things. And he's done some things that have rubbed some people the wrong way at times, away from the court, and some of the Twitter stuff, like I said earlier about Kyrie and her. But he works off the court very hard with the youth. He puts his time in socially, whether you agree or disagree with some of his views. He's somebody who cares about, bigger things than just basketball. And I think sometimes people would look at that and say, oh, well, he doesn't care about the game as much. But you can't say that about Jaylen because he improves every year, which proves that he cares about the game, that he works on his game, that he takes it seriously. And I just think we should appreciate both guys. And sometimes we fall into the tit for tat thing because they're on the same team. And I just think
you fall into that because the NBA is an alpha dog sport. It always has been, right? It's always like when you go and look at even the teams that had like two superstars, there's always the one guy that you identify with more than the other. It was like when the Lakers had Kobe and Shaq. It's like, who's the alpha dog on that team?
Yeah, and I guess I find it funny because I think maybe because it's more obvious with Jaylen because, again, he's a little bit more like emotional at times, but I actually think Jason's gotten a lot more emotional, and people just don't acknowledge it. Like, a lot of times this year, I've seen Jason scream and yell and slap his teammates and slap Jaylen in the chest and yell in his face after a big shot. I saw him the other night after the Drew Holiday and one, throwing his arm in the air and screaming. The other night when he goes and gets an and one in overtime and he's flexing to the crowd. It's like people miss those things.
But he's usually the one to walk away from a fight, and that's what bothers me.
Well, again, I don't want him, though, to act like he's a badass, ass-kicking machine.
I don't want him to act like anything
guy.
I want him to be.
I want him to be productive. I want him to win games. And I think, aside from, I get people wanting different things from athletes. I get it. And look, that's what you want from him, and that's cool. And that's what RJ wants from him, and that's cool because the hockey guy in him and all. And I understand that. But to me, it's like,
he just gave you the hockey guy, RJ.
He said it.
I did.
He said I'm the hockey guy. So, but I think people conflate. They conflate the emotion on the floor and how a guy approaches the game. And I think that's the wrong thing to do. Like, you can't tell me that Jason Tatum isn't an alpha or doesn't want to have that dog mentality when he goes on the road against Milwaukee in 2022 and absolutely obliterates Giannis and the Bucks to force a Game 7. Like, you can't tell me that he doesn't have the dog mentality after he drops 51 on Joel Embiid's forehead in a Game 7 last year.
Yeah, but for you and you're giving some really good examples, but you can't act like there aren't examples of him shrinking in the fourth quarter of big games either.
He's the worst clutch shooter on this team in the postseason so far.
I don't know if that's a fact. I mean, that might be how you feel. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
I'm pretty sure statistically it is. I can look
All right, well, if it is,
let me sneak in a call or two before we get to our break.
Hold on. Let me just answer that point 1 second. He's not perfect.
No, nobody's asking him to be perfect.
Well, you kind of just did.
Well, I
though.
kind of am because he's about to get paid. He's asking for the probably highest paycheck in NBA history. You better be damn near perfect if that's the case.
I mean, I just think what you want Jason Tatum to be is like one of the best 5 players ever.
You ever I know we got colors to get to, but it's like you ever start dating someone and it's like you see so much potential in them, and
I
it's
haven't
like
dated in a long time.
Well, regardless, you start dating someone and you're like, I see so much potential in them. Why can't you be this person? That's how I feel about Jason Tatum. It's like I know what you're capable of doing, and I'm okay holding you to these high expectations because I know that you are capable of reaching them.
I think Kendra just pointed out a big difference between men and women. No, men don't do that. We don't go look at all the potential that this. No, she's got to have it put together right off the bat, or it's not going to work because we're the ones who end up getting changed along the way.
I mean, I just look at Tatum 5-2 record in Game 7s, and one of those losses is when he had a high ankle sprain last year against Miami in the first play of the game. So, I mean, again, is he perfect? No, but I'm not going to sit here and act like he's never done it before. Like. He got outplayed by Steph Curry in 2022. That's not a tragedy, folks. He's Steph freaking Curry. Sometimes you got to tip your cap to the other guy and go, you know what? Steph Curry's a multi-champion, and that dude's just a beast. He's crazy and had an out-of-body experience. Tip of the cap. That happens. The other guys play well, too.
All right, let me sneak in Brandon from Boston here. Brandon, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I don't know. Now, no disrespect. I don't know who you are because I'm looking at you on TV. You're the guy in the middle, and you broke down Tatum like a cookie.
Thank you, Brandon.
I missed the second word. What was the second word?
I don't know.
Was it a compliment after the F-bomb?
Stream wins. Stream wins.
You broke him down like a bleeping something. I missed the second word.
All right. Let me.
If it was a compliment, thanks, Brandon.
Let me try Anthony real quick. Anthony, go ahead.
It wasn't.
Hey, guys. I'm trying to golf today, and you guys just got my heart rate up. First off, the whole Tatum doesn't like you said. He dropped 46 on the reigning NBA champions against Giannis, 51 on the road, 50 at home on a Game 7 against Embiid, and then having the audacity to say Porzingis is the MVP of the season if he wasn't healthy. Are we serious? Is this a legitimate conversation that's occurring right now? Come on. I understand he hasn't won a ring. I understand he leaves a lot to be desired, but he's the best player on the best team in the NBA right now. And he's, like you said, he's a walking, 25, 10 and 8, whatever it may be. Like, he's going to get his.
All right. Let me Anthony, appreciate it. Just real quick. 10 seconds.
Yeah.
If the Celtics do not win the title this year, how much heat is he going to take for that? How much heat should he take for that?
He should take heat. Yeah.
He's the best player on the best team in the league.
Of it.
Like, you have had a clear path to the final, and you will be favored in the finals.
But it's not an easy question to answer, though. Like,
I didn't want it to be easy.
Overall,
I love the but.
No, because overall, generally, yes. It will go on him. But if the rest of the team, like if he's making
if he averages 40 in the finals,
right, so,
obviously it's not on him.
Right,
but
I think so. If he goes he's 25, 10 and 5, pretty much in the playoffs in his career. So if he goes into the finals and he averages 30, 10 and 5, and they lose, do I sit there and go, "Oh, Tatum"? It's really difficult to do.
But they don't lose if he does that.
Well,
they don't lose if he does that.
They've lost in the past when he's played well.
Yeah, but they're not.
All right. We will get to we've got lots more to come. We got 2 hours of this left. 617-779-0985. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy here on Memorial Day Monday.
Good morning, Boston. Last night in the Western Conference Finals, the Mavericks took a commanding 3-0 series lead over the Timberwolves. Both Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving had 33 points, but PJ Washington Jr. would get it going to put things away late in the fourth with a tie-breaking three-pointer with 3:38 remaining. The Mavericks would roll from there. Good news for both the Mavericks and the Celtics, though. No team in NBA playoff history has rallied from being down 3-0 in a series to come back. As for your Boston Celtics, they will play a Game 4 tonight against the Pacers in Indiana. It was originally reported that Kristaps Porzingis could come back as early as this game, but has officially been ruled out. Pre-game for tonight's game will be available right here on the BetMGM Celtics radio network at 7:30 for an 8 p.m. tip. And reigning National League MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. tore his ACL in his left knee last night in a game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He previously had torn the ACL in his right knee and will now obviously miss the remainder of the 2024 season. A huge hit to this team after already losing pitcher Spencer Strider earlier this year. And the Red Sox hosted the Milwaukee Brewers this weekend at Fenway Park. Yesterday's game got the juices flowing when there was a bench-clearing brawl between the two sides. The dispute started during the top of the seventh inning when Boston Chris Martin covered first base on a ground ball by Brewers Christian Yelich. As Martin walked back to the dugout, he can be seen making a comment to Milwaukee's first base coach Quentin Berry that compelled Berry to respond quite angrily. There was no pushing and shoving and no punches thrown in the confrontation, and the Red Sox are back on the field today at 1:05 p.m. to play the Orioles. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Massachusetts Energy Marketers Association, clean, renewable bioheat fuel. You are listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub, Boston Center for Sports. I'm Kendra Middleton, and your next update around 8:30.
If you've got the app, you've got Toucher and Hardy to wake you up no matter where you are.
Or who may or may not have been to jail.
Get the app, the 98.5 The Sports Hub app. Toucher and Hardy.
Such an fantastic explosion.
98.5 The Sports Hub.
You're the guy in the middle, and you broke down Tatum like a
Sox. Poured over stats, which I will get to.
You were like
Jason
email.
Tatum.
You were going on the email chain early yesterday.
I know.
It's like, man, I should probably look some things up before I go out and start drinking all afternoon.
I'm such a loser. So Ryan Beaton sent the email. This tells you how much of a loser I am. He sent the email chain to start it at 11:38. 12:15. I emailed Full Thoughts.
I woke up this morning and checked my email as I was getting ready, and it's like I got like 5 emails from Cattles. What's going on?
Well, I do want to explain that though. Things were happening.
That's it. No, I appreciate it because you're the one who broke the news to me that Pasternak might need hip surgery.
So that was how I responded. I think Ryan felt. I think Beaton felt bad for me because he texted me and was like, "Thanks, man." I think he wanted me to feel like he wanted to acknowledge that I was such a loser. Like, hey, man, thanks. So I felt better about myself. And then Kendra was at Boston Calling all weekend. So I took 45 minutes to respond. Kendra took about 22 hours to respond.
So I sent.
RJ was in the middle.
I sent some stuff out a little before 3:00 yesterday. Cattles responds at 6:49, 7:35, 9:36, 9:44.
When I sent the 9:36 and then the 9:44, I felt bad because I saw the pasta hip thing, and then literally like 10 minutes later, I saw the Jaylen thing, and I'm like, I knew that Ryan, you wanted to talk about Jaylen, so right. I was like, I got to put that in there. But now I just emailed twice in like 10 minutes.
That's fine.
I had no phone service at all yesterday, so I saw all of this morning.
I'd rather that than the alternative, because some people on that list of 40 whatever people that I've co-hosted with. There's nothing on the email chain.
Well, that's my OCD, man. So like it's not great.
I did put some national stuff in there though, because you guys really you guys hit the local stuff pretty good.
You did. You got the Acuna Jr. and I didn't see Acuna was the ACL. I saw that it was going to have tests.
Yeah, ACL. I put the French
Osaka.
Open in there. Got some racing stuff in the notes.
Yeah, your racing thing. You were tweeting like a mad woman.
I love
yesterday.
Formula One, and it's the biggest race of the year. My bets did not hit, but I think that if you talk to anybody who follows motorsports, yesterday was nuts. Like nobody really expected that to happen.
Who's winning more in the last 6 months? You or Lift Shots? Please tell me you.
Yeah. Probably me on the air. Like our certified stuff. Yeah, probably me.
Love it. Take that, Lift Shots.
What's with you and Lift Shots?
I love it.
It's a few times you've come.
He kicked my ass in the fall, but
I bust his balls. It's a friendly thing.
Well, but that's the way it is for most people. Like when you bet, like you're better at some things than others. Like,
no, I mean, if you were right all the time, you wouldn't be doing radio. You'd be a billionaire off on an island.
Some people do really well during football season. Some of us do better during the spring. Like, NHL playoffs roll around. I had
my sports are different. I hit different.
I was going to say, what do you do well in?
So I am a football girl through and through, but for some reason I know so much about football, and I cannot gamble well on football outside of futures. But I hit really well in pretty much the awards market is kind of where I hit super well. Futures, awards markets. I did really well in college basketball this year. Formula One, most of the time, is great for me. This weekend, worst weekend of betting racing I've ever had.
Worst weekend of racing you've ever had?
Ever, yeah.
Wow. Sorry about
rough
that.
one.
Well, I mean, Monaco, that's the thing.
It's a good thing we're getting paid time and a half for today.
Yeah, casual race fans don't get that, like, Monaco is just kind of different.
You in the union? Yes, we are. This is one of our days. Like, hey, you want to work a holiday? Sure, I will.
My day just got better.
Yeah. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for the guys today. 617-779-0985. Let's go back to the phones. Bob in Winthrop wants to get in on the Celtics conversation. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, guys. I promise not to swear, for sure, okay? All righty. I'll try to keep it clean. I think what happens with Tatum is, especially in this market, but even in other markets, is people are holding him up to a standard that he can't really reach. I mean, if you're trying to compare him to LeBron or Michael Jordan, that's useless because those guys are 2 of 2. Those are the 2 greatest players of all time. Tatum's a wonderful player. Like Cattle said, the last 6 games when they were even 1-1 against Cleveland in the second round, he's been 31-10-6. That's outstanding basketball by Tatum. And I think a lot of it's style versus substance. He's so smooth. He's kind of easygoing guy. He's always kind of happy-go-lucky, whereas Brown seems more of a more focused guy, more serious guy, and people kind of gravitate to that a little bit more. But they're in a situation where they don't need one of these guys to play out of his mind to win. If they both play to their level, they should be just fine, especially once Porzingis comes back and once you get the rest of that team up to par with the likes of Drew Holiday, who's probably been the MVP of this series so far. So I just think that the standards they're holding Tatum to are just too high. He's a fabulous player, 6th, 7th best player in the league. If that's what he is, don't complain.
Like I'm fine with one of those guys taking a back seat to the other. Like whoever happens to have it that night, or whoever has the easier matchup that night, or whatever. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Brown going off for 40 points, and then the next night Tatum comes back and he puts in his 33 and they win easily, and that works too. I think the conversation becomes around again. It's just kind of the traditional NBA thing is. There's one guy, right? Even on teams that are kind of all-star teams, there's always that one guy. If it's the Golden State Warriors, it's like, yeah, but it's Steph Curry's team, right? That ultimately it's Steph Curry that runs that decides how far that they go. On this team, it doesn't have to be that way. And I get why it is and why those conversations happen because it's kind of traditionally in the NBA how it works. But this is a 2-man ship. And if one of them isn't good enough on a particular night, the other guy can pick that up. And that's why they're in the position that they're in.
I don't think there's enough appreciation for either guy's ability to subjugate their ego at times to allow the other to, like what you're saying. I mean, I think it says an awful lot about both Tatum and Brown. That if Brown has it going, Tatum doesn't have much of an issue of stepping back and creating for him and just letting him go. And I think Brown, most of all, and this was my whole thing at BSJ that I wrote about Brown, is he's so underappreciated and overlooked because it's always about Tatum, especially the national narrative. And then when Brown scores 40, it's like, who's the better player, Tatum or Brown? It's like, really? We're going to do that now? But, Jaylen's been fine accepting that Tatum is going to get that. And that says an awful lot about Jaylen Brown. That's actually, people will think like that's a lack of confidence. That's actually more confidence because Brown has the confidence of being like, look, you don't have to talk about me. I don't have to be, as my mother used to say, the belle of the ball. I don't have to be that guy. I'm fine with not you can say what you want about me. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play my game. And I'm not going to worry about what Tatum's doing and what people are saying about Jason Tatum and me and not getting along. I'm just going to fit in and do the best that I can with what I'm given.
Do you think that's changed, though, since Brown got his money? Like, it's because it's a hell of a lot easier to take that, that mentality when you're sitting on a pile of $300 million. And you're not worried about, am I going to be able to get the super
I don't care what you have to say. I'm making more money than you.
Those all NBA votes. As much as I liked hearing the other day from Brown, I don't give a bleep about the all NBA.
Yeah,
he cared about it a couple of years ago. Like it made him. It was a much bigger deal to him before he got the bag.
I think two things. It could be the contract for sure. I also think trading Marcus Smart was gigantic for this team. And I loved Marcus. I loved Marcus in college. I was ecstatic when they drafted Marcus. But Marcus tended to be the guy with the loudest voice in the room. And I think when they traded Marcus Smart, it forced Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to really establish the hierarchy of this basketball.
It had to be their team at that point.
You got to put Grant Williams into that conversation as well.
Oh, God. I just try not to talk about Grant.
But if you're going to talk,
I know.
Williams,
He just annoyed me.
Shut up either.
He
seemed to annoy a lot of people.
It was so
the
funny.
Batman. Ugh.
It was so funny that Dallas was like, after like 2 months, like, no, we can't.
Did you see the guy?
Are we playing right now?
Did you see the guy who came out and was like, "Can Grant Williams please get out of my girlfriend's DMs on Twitter?"
It's just
that was good.
He always has to weigh in on things. Can I just give you a couple of stats?
Sure.
Are you sure?
I know you worked hard on these. Go ahead.
I didn't work hard. Dick Light worked hard and others. So Jason Tatum, I just want, because I do think
more Jason Tatum stats.
Because I think people, they're upset because he's not absolutely
Next time
perfect.
I'm coming on with you, I'm just gonna bring stats about like the amount of times he pissed before the game.
I don't know if that would show his greatness, but it might in other categories. So Tatum became the 9th player in NBA playoff history the other night. So go 35-10, have 8 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. Did you know he's the only player in NBA history to hit all those marks and not commit a single turnover? Also, when you look at Jason Tatum, NBA history, RJ, through his first 107 playoff games, he is one of 3 players to score 2,500 points or more, grab 800 rebounds or more, have 500 assists or more. The only other 2 guys in NBA history that have done that, the first 107 playoff games, LeBron James and Larry freaking Bird. I'm not telling you he's perfect.
So
I would love to see him close it out.
I was gonna say, if we're gonna talk about this, you're basically talking about him like he's those dudes.
No, I'm not.
You guys should kiss.
I'm not saying he's the same. I'm just saying what he's done. His production, what he's done on the floor. It's very rare, and I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the day to day. And I think when you look at what he's done so far, this early on in his career, the dude, he's been pretty damn good.
Steve, you're up next here on Toucher and Hardy. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Nick, I just wanted to say good morning to you because I've been following you on your pod since you started. This is Steve in Texas, and I love how you've been answering back this morning with facts. And that's really, that to me is a huge thing. I'm tired of the Boston narrative of putting Tatum and Brown against each other. We got to be happy that these 2 guys are playing on our team, and they are going to get it done. They're not going to fall in the same category as guys that have had great careers and not won championships. But I just wanted to say good morning and thank you for what you bring to the table in your pod and everything. I'm glad to see you on 98.5. And RJ, I love the hockey show. I trust you guys to keep me in contact with the Bruins. And I just had a thought about what Jake DeBrusk said the other day about wanting to be with a winner. And I'm wondering if that is a veiled shot at the Bruins. I want to hear your take. I'm going to hang up and listen. Have a great Memorial Day, everybody.
All right, appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks.
We can talk about DeBrusk a little.
That guy was basically like, and the girl, nothing for you. None for you, Gretchen Wieners.
You wanted to call and thank Nick. It's like,
he loves the hockey show.
Thank you for all.
I appreciate the kind words. I should say that. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
And we all do. Except for Kendra. No kind words.
It's literally the scene in Mean Girls when he's like, and none for Gretchen Wieners. Bye.
All right, we'll continue here. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy here on Memorial Day.
You're listening to Toucher and Hardy.
Again, negotiations are a two-way street. We took an aggressive position with Jake. No different than the other players that have chosen not to re-sign and explore. That's within his right. Certainly at this time of the year. Do I see a path? Yeah, there's a path. And I told him that at our exits, that he's been a big part of our group. He elevated in the playoffs. And I would prefer to have Jake DeBrusk on our team. But he has some opportunity in front of him that he may pursue otherwise. So I don't have a clear answer for you today, but I know the position we've taken. We feel very comfortable, but it didn't get it to the finish line either.
Back here on Toucher and Hardy, Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton. The caller just before the break asked about Jake DeBrusk. We had some interesting comments last week. Obviously, he's headed into free agency. You hear Don Sweeney there. And a couple of things that Sweeney mentioned, taking an aggressive position in the negotiations with Jake. I wasn't sure how to read that. In that, does that mean you were aggressively trying to re-sign him? Or does an aggressive position mean we drew our line, we're not going beyond that, and it's up to Jake to meet our price, or he's not going to be here?
For some reason, I feel as though it sounds as though they're saying meet our price or don't be here, but at the same time, I feel like they really like him as a person and want to keep him around.
Negotiations are a two-way street.
Yeah.
Don't you feel that way?
It feels like Jake's asking for too much, and we're aggressively holding our line.
Well,
negotiations a two-way street sounds like you guys got to meet us somewhere. Like we've done all that we can do.
The way that it's been framed is like they really haven't even spoken all year, so that had to come really early. It wasn't one of those conversations. It would lead you to believe that it was one of those conversations where it's like, here's where we're at, Jake. And Jake was like, well, this is what I'm looking for. And maybe it was such a wide gap that one of the sides or both sides said, you know what? Maybe we come back and talk about this. Maybe we don't, but we're obviously not seeing eye to eye right now.
So the thing about DeBrusk is his numbers are down this year. Now, he came out after the season ended that he had played through a broken hand for a decent chunk of the season, and maybe that equates to that stretch where he went like a month without a point.
But he does that often. Like, that's not a new thing with him, and I don't think you can point it to a broken hand because that's kind of been his MO throughout his career.
Hockey players are the best.
What it is with DeBrusk is when he gets you go back to the COVID year. And he was non-existent for a lot of that. And it came out after the fact that he was, struggling mental health-wise. He was by himself. He, wasn't able to hang out with his teammates. He really, kind of got to him mentally.
Yeah.
What his numbers ended up being this year aren't far off of what I expected to get out of him this year in a contract situation because this stuff gets in his head. And I feel like, and maybe this is just, wishful thinking, but I feel like if he gets his contract, he gets his term, he gets his money, he's got nothing to worry about in that capacity anymore. He's back to 25, 27 goal a year, Jake DeBrusk.
I don't know, because I think about it, and he's his own worst enemy. I agree with you that he gets in his own head about stuff. He goes on insane droughts without points or without goals or whatever. And on top of that, I look back at all the Bruce Cassidy stuff and how when there was all that finger pointing going on, the gun seemed to turn on him quite a bit in all of that discourse.
So from what I heard about that, and I'm getting this stuff second and third hand, but from what I heard about that, I mean, Cassidy was hard on him. He was hard on a lot of guys. That's,
that's him as a coach.
That's his style, and some guys take to that and some guys don't.
Right.
But that there was, and I don't know if this is specific to DeBrusk or, to some of those guys, that basically when you got into Cassidy's doghouse, it was really, really difficult to escape. And also that he wasn't necessarily telling guys what they needed to do to meet whatever expectations that
Get
he
on
had
his
for
good
them.
side.
Yeah, I also
and
think
it's like if you're going to be a hard-ass coach, like that's part of it. It's like you've also got to be fair to the player. And you can't just be like, hey, you're playing like crap, get out of my face. There's got to be more communication than that.
You see the possibility in someone, and the fear is that he's going to go off and be what he's capable of being with somebody else, and that's going to sting.
I would also say that a couple things here. Like, DeBrusk wasn't alone with Cassidy, right? I mean, there were some other guys that...
That's why Cassidy's gone, and the team's not.
It felt like Cassidy had met his end.
Too Gen Z of a team.
And dudes weren't really, vibing with him as well as, maybe we thought. But when you look at DeBrusk, I just think it's all about expectations. To me, he's going to give you 20 to 25 goals. He's going to be dependable on the PK for the most part. And I brought this up earlier. I'll bring it up again. Playoff-wise, he's been productive. So
he's your best point scorer in the playoffs this year.
You got to live with the Jekyll.
So nuts.
I know, it's crazy.
So nuts.
On a team with Pasternak and Marchand, like Jake DeBrusk.
Lauco, and Zacco is like, yeah, this is the Boston Bruins, baby.
Let's go.
This is what I expected in September.
Oh, so I think, yes, you've got to deal with the Jekyll and Hyde of Jake DeBrusk. You've got to deal with the frustrating, he didn't finish on that. Like those types of you got to live with it. But if you look at it and say to yourself, if you go through that, get into the postseason, and he's productive there, and he helps you on the PK and special teams, then like you said, RJ, $6 million a year or so. Now, if you're talking $7-8 million a year, now you're doubling what he's made the past couple, right. And I don't see that. The other question you got to ask, Kendra, is when you're looking at this team. First of all, he's turning 28 in October, so he's right in his prime. You already need scoring help. So now if you lose DeBrusk, you now have to replace him. I think you've got to get another winger that can score, and you haven't even started to address the problem at center. So it's like, how much are you willing?
And the defenseman question.
Yeah.
That's
so
the other thing, too.
Like, how much are you willing to – he's not – we can all agree.
He's not worth a lot.
Yeah, we could all sit there and say, like, we want more from him, and he's frustrating. But if you lose him – now you got to replace that 20 to 25 goals. You got to replace that playoff production.
It's the length of the contract that he wants that's the issue for me, because
How far would you go?
I get the 6-for-6 thing, and I do think that you owe him, because he's one of your guys, to retain him a little bit longer than you probably would. But my concern is that he falls back into this slump of, a drought for however long, and then you're stuck with him and you can't get rid of him when you had the opportunity.
I think it's the opposite. I think the pressure's off. Like, he gets his 6x6. I think pressure's off.
But he works under pressure. Look at when he was on the conversation of the trading block the last go around. He's got it last year when there was conversations of him being traded, and then you look at this postseason when his back's against the wall, he's due for something again, and that's when he starts to shine. That's my question with him. Is it feels as though he only wants to shine when there's a question mark above his head.
See, I think again, I look at this year, and yes, there was an injury along with it, but like he didn't bring his best this year when he had everything riding on this season.
DeBrusk missed the net by 10 feet.
Thank you, Matt. The thing about DeBrusk, and you mentioned it, Nick, is if he leaves, if they let him walk here, who are you getting to replace him?
Yep.
Now, there are guys out there that can do what he does, but
at that price, that's the thing.
You're going to get an inconsistent player for $6 million a year to fill a role that Jake DeBrusk already fills.
Do you think he wants to be here, though?
Yeah, I do. Now, that goes back to what the caller brought up, which is why we started talking about this, which was DeBrusk last week was asked about kind of what he's prioritizing in his contract search here. And he said he's prioritizing winning.
Yeah.
Like he wants to win a championship. So, okay. This isn't a bad place to do that. Like, you've got a pretty good team. It needs upgrades, but you've got Hall of Fame caliber players around you in Pasternak, in Marchand, in my opinion. McAvoy may get there someday. Like, you've got Swayman, who's about to get locked up long-term as your goalie, and he has shown that he's perfectly capable of...
The young guys this year have shown a lot of promise between Beecher, Patra, all those kids. A lot of promise. With the Bruins have not drafted well or had young talent in a long time, but those kids this year were a highlight of this team.
So you've got the building blocks of a title team around here. It's like, so unless you're going to, like, you're not getting a deal from Toronto. They can't afford what they've got right now. Like, you go down some of the contending teams, like everybody's up against the cap. So where are you getting that money? Someplace where you have a realistic chance of winning in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
There's not that many places.
And you already have several holes in the boat to plug up. Like, Kendra said, we haven't even talked about the deep pairings in the left side, left shot defenseman. Are you super comfortable with Hampus Lindholm after the last year or so? After that postseason we just saw, since last postseason, he has not been the same guy. Grizzlick's gone, thankfully. He's not, good enough to get in a playoff rotation. Forbort's gone. So, yes, Lowry will help fill that need, and Lowry was mostly terrific, especially, given his age and just figuring this thing out. But you need at least one center. You probably need 2 scoring wings. You need a left shot defenseman. You need to figure out, what you're going to do with Olmark. I think you're fine there.
I was about to counter. RJ, what would it take for you, because of the Brandon Bosse situation, to deal Swayman instead of Olmark with this insane contract?
It's not happening.
Not happening?
Not a chance.
All right.
Because I like Linus Olmark. He's an excellent goalie, but he's...
Even if they gave you all the prospects, whatever?
No, because I've got Swayman. I mean, Swayman's a young guy. Like, Olmark's into his 30s now.
I don't disagree with you. I'm pro Sway.
Yeah,
I think you got to keep Sway. I'm just saying, if somebody's going to offer you the house, how do you turn that down?
Yeah, because there's a reason they're offering you so much. Like,
I get it.
That's the thing.
Just devil's advocate over here.
Yeah, not happening. Not after what we just saw.
I was just gonna say, after that postseason, man, he answered all the questions that people had. Right? Does he have the gas tank? Can he do it in big spots?
Because again, we don't know how all this, what's being negotiated here. Like, if Swayman's asking for Bobrovsky money or something ridiculous like that, it's like, no,
so
we're not.
Give up 5 goals,
we're not
and
doing
23
that.
shots.
But I'm willing. It's like, would I do 8 times 8 for Swayman? Yes.
Sway's what, 27?
25.
Is he that young?
Yes.
Jesus, we were in college at the same time.
Yeah, he's basically 3 years in the league at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he was at UMaine when I was at UNH, so.
Yeah, he doesn't turn 26 until like right around Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
late November.
I knew he was I think he's a Scorpio, baby. I knew he was a Scorpio. I think. Anyways, you guys don't care about that.
I don't even know what that means. Like,
don't play it cool.
No, I really.
Are you big in the astrology thing?
I think it's funny. I love how it makes men angry.
I'm a Leo. What is that supposed to mean? Like, what is that?
We can talk about this off the air. People don't care about this.
Fair enough.
I'm a Virgo, which means I'm just a tight ass, basically. It's how, as I understand it. You're not. Yeah.
I don't know much. I don't know that much about it, but I do think it's funny. I just love how it triggers people. I just love anything that's like, you believe in that crap?
I don't have an issue.
Get
with
Dan Lifshatz going on the astrology. Big astrology guy, Dan
Is
Lifshatz.
He?
Yeah.
Hold on. Dan Lifshatz,
Dan
big
Lifshatz, big
astrology
astrology guy. Chinese astrology specifically.
Learn something new every day.
Dan Lifshatz taking Sagittarius minus the 3. Kendra Middleton's going to give us Sports Hub headlines. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, and Kendra in for Toucher and Hardy.
Jake DeBrusk, Maz, your thoughts? He's a dope.
Sports Hub headline.
are all off today. They'll be back in tomorrow. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, and Kendra Middleton here with you on this Memorial Day. Just real quick before we get to our, we got a few minutes here, top of the hour. We've talked a lot about the Celtics this morning, mixed in a little Bruins, Jake DeBrusk, Linus Ullmark, etc. Let me just ask you real quick. We won't get into too much on the Patriots, but I'm looking at this story from over the weekend that Brandon Ayuk wants $120 million ish.
Wants to get paid.
He wants the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract. Is the report?
Yeah, Detroit screwed everybody else pretty much.
That's the way it
People
works.
will say that it was Christian Kirk, but we all know that it wasn't.
I couldn't believe the Christian Kirk deal.
Worth every cent.
So Mike Garafolo reports Ayuk and the 49ers nowhere close to a contract extension. John Lynch has come out, said he's keeping everybody. Like, he's going to find a way to make this work, right? We're keeping Debo. We're keeping Ayuk. And then it comes out St. Brown wants, or Ayuk wants something in the neighborhood of the 4-year, $120 million extension that St. Brown got, $77 million guaranteed. I start looking at the numbers, and even in a league where the salary cap can be fudged like crazy, I'm not sure how you pay both of those guys.
Because the cap's not real.
I understand. I understand. But your quarterback is going to need to get paid at some point.
Yeah, I don't think you do.
Right?
I think Debo's gone.
You think Debo's gone?
Yeah. I think Debo's
Well, they also just took that money from Eric Armstead off the table, too, so that helps.
Like, I was out there. I was doing radio in Sacramento for about a year and a half, and I was out there during the whole Debo stuff. When, people making a big deal about this Ayuk stuff, please. Debo was at nightclubs on social media with signs behind him saying, pay the man. I mean, Debo went, full throttle Tom Werner out there in San Francisco to get paid. And I just think would they like to keep both guys in a perfect world? Sure. But I also don't think
you always want to keep.
Yeah, but I don't think they draft Ricky Pearsall in the first round unless they know that they might have to move one of them, and it ain't gonna be Ayuk. So I know Bert Breer last night on what is it, Boston Sports Tonight with Phil Perry. He said that he thinks Debo is the more likely to be available amongst all these names. And I want Kendra. Would you, if you're the Patriots, do you make a deal for Debo? You interested in that, or
see, you're jumping at you jumped ahead a little bit, but
sorry,
no, so whether it's Ayuk or Debo, T. Higgins, in Cincinnati, who says he still expects to be there, but the word is that they're nowhere close. Like, some of these guys, somebody's going to be available here for the right price. So that was my question: is whether it's Ayuk or Debo or Higgins or are the Patriots aggressively pursuing any of these?
No, because they're cheap. That's the issue. Do I think that the Patriots?
But you're not cheap for cheapness' sake. Like you just want to be cheap and win 4 games.
You should have overpaid Calvin Ridley, and you didn't. That would have been your, kind of way out of this. He's sneaky. He had 2,000 yard or 1,000, not 2,000. He had a 1,000-yard season last year quietly, and he was hurt a lot. And that's the thing, is that you could have gone out there and got that. The money wasn't that far off. It was the second receiver that you lost to the Tennessee Titans in less than a year span that you could have had with DeAndre Hopkins in that whole situation, who was great for Will Levis. So at this point, you've got a lot of money you have to spend, and it's money that you have to spend. You need to spend whatever it's going to take to have a guy want to come here. And yes, it's going to take a lot because of the whole tax situation here, but who are you paying, and who are you going to be paying that you can at least make an argument not to do so?
So to go off of your question about being aggressive, I think the question is, what's aggressive, right? Like, what are you willing to give up? Am I willing to give up a second-round pick for Debo? Hell no.
It's a first. It's going to be a first.
For Debo?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm out. I'm so out on that. I would not go anything above third round. I'm not making that deal for Debo. Debo's been constantly banged up.
Are you a Patriots fan?
Yeah. But I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go with Debo. I mean, I just think, look, he's a Z receiver. I would be fine with
that offense. He thrived in that offense last year.
I know, but he plays the Z, and you've got Kendrick Bourne playing the Z. You just drafted Jalen Polk to play the Z. You've got KJ Osborne who could play the Z receiver. Well, if I'm looking at this, and again, I would take Debo. I would, because he'd immediately be your best receiver in the room.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving up a second-round pick or better for him. No, not at his age, not with his contract. He's got 1 year left on his deal.
For a guy like that, I tell Kendrick Bourne, you moving.
I just think like he's taken a lot of hits. He's got a lot of wear and tear. And look, San Francisco knows that, right? They're drafting Ricky Pearsall because they know that Debo's getting long in the tooth. So could he give you 1 or 2 really good years? Yeah. But am I giving up a second-round pick? Or no way. Ayuk, we can talk. Absolutely. T. Higgins, maybe even him, second-round pick. I'll talk about it. But Debo scares the crap out of me. He screams to me a guy who's going to, he'll give you 11 games, 12 games this year. He'll be good in those games. But by next year, 2025,
I just don't
what
think
are you
you're
going to
in a
get from
place
him?
as a fan or even a franchise to turn down a guy like that and whatever they want. You're not in a place for that.
My issue is, listen, you just drafted what you hope is your franchise quarterback. We don't know how much he's going to play yet this year, but assuming he's going to play some, I feel like they're putting him in the same position that Mac Jones was in
Correct.
for years, which is go win the games
Here's
yourself,
Juju.
kid.
Have fun.
It's like, maybe we'll give you a running game to work with, but we're not going to give you any top quality wide receivers.
I mean, I disagree. They drafted Polk. They drafted Javon Baker.
How's it different than the Mac Jones thing, though?
They've got a hit on those guys. Well, it's number one, I don't think Drake May is starting week 1. Number 2, they didn't give young receivers for Mac to really like develop and grow with. The N'Keal Harry thing was a disaster from the beginning. That's a misevaluation on the player. It's the Patriots. The thing is that Bill Belichick tried to invest. He just didn't do it correctly.
Well, I mean,
he invested on the wrong guys over and over again.
That was always one of those things. Belichick never got it right when it came to drafting the receiver. I get it.
If N'Keal Harry hits or Tyquan Thornton hits, or you decided to sign DeAndre Hopkins, Kendra, to use your example, instead of giving Devontae Parker an extension. And that was because he failed to get ahead on, when Gronkowski was getting older, he failed to get ahead at tight end, so he had to try to play catch up and use 2 picks on guys that weren't very good in not a deep draft.
It's asking a lot for Drake May to develop as a quarterback without legitimate help outside of the guys who are also trying to develop, right? You're basically, it's like, okay, we got a quarterback we're trying to develop, and we have receivers who are trying to develop at the same time. So either they all hit none of them hit.
Pop Douglas is probably going to be the guy to emerge out of this group, if you ask me, too. Like, it's not even going to be who
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that it's going to be that guy that's going to wind up growing with Drake May. If you're not going to go out there and get a guy like Tez Walker, who he's comfortable with in the draft, that they had the opportunity to do, if you're not going to do that, you need to bring in someone like Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, because how the hell else is this guy going to get any better if he's throwing to, literally nobody? His best receiver right now is probably going to be Kendrick or Hunter Henry. God forbid, how does a guy like that grow in this system?
Well, you've got to have somebody to go get, right? So you would say Calvin Ridley, and that's a debate. I would.
If they wanted to be cheap about it, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think that's another conversation for another day, or maybe later, because I don't think they've been, as cheap as people think they've been this offseason. But when you look at the Calvin Ridley thing, that's a debate. Like, you and I can go back. There are people that say he's not worth the money. You think they should have paid whatever. I get that. We can disagree on that. But outside of Calvin Ridley, who's the guy? Like, nobody's been traded. Free agency was a big zero because Pittman got tagged. Evans got tagged.
I mean, they didn't go after Gabe Davis either.
Gabe Davis isn't a 1, though. I mean, Gabe Davis like a 3.
He would be here.
Yeah, but, I mean, you can get as much, I think, out of, like, Jaylen Polk as you would get out of Gabe Davis. Like, honestly, I'm not a big fan of Gabe Davis. So I just think, like, when you look at the options.
But they didn't do anything in the draft either to really.
Yeah, but they had 3 critical holes to fill. Like, they had to draft a quarterback. They had to draft a quarterback, a wide receiver, and an offensive tackle. You can't draft all 3 in the first round. So once you made that decision to draft Drake May at 3, you had to do the best that you could do. They tried to move up into round 1. Buffalo did not want to trade up.
When they traded in the second round, they had the option to have the first of the 6 best wide receivers that they could have taken, and they traded back just to get the 6th worst wide receiver still available. What's the point of that?
So they tried to trade up, and Buffalo shot it down. There were 3 trades, I think, past pick 17. if you look at it, 2 of those trades were done by Buffalo. The other trade that was made, the Patriots would have had to give up a 3rd-round pick, their 2nd-round pick.
That's not my point. What I'm saying is that they could have stayed where they were in the 2nd round and taken a receiver. Instead, they traded back and took the 6th worst left on the board because they had all those receivers go in the same slot, right in front of them.
But so that all comes down to the evaluation of the player, though, right? Like, I know that people want to sit there and throw out, oh, he was the 6th wide receiver taken. Maybe the Patriots felt like he was third. He was third best in that that list of 6 guys, right? So there's not a huge people love Ladd McConkey. He's hurt all the time. So yeah, he might work out and be great. He might get hurt his first year and be an absolute nothing. People love Keon Coleman. I like Keon Coleman.
Keon.
I like him a lot, but there's the argument of he could be your N'Keal Harry guy who doesn't separate and gives and has other issues like. We're talking about flavors of ice cream. Like, it's not like somebody was, oh, my God, that guy. The only guy that got drafted in that area, and it was well after the area at the end of the day, it was A.D. Mitchell. That's the guy to me that was a pure, he could be a number 1 dude, no doubt. But obviously he fell to the 50s because people had some questions about him.
Regardless of all that, again, because your point about once you decided you're taking Drake May in the 1st round, like you're not getting a 1st-round wide receiver at that point. Okay, fine. Then you have to, in my eyes, and this is why I asked the question, you have to then go out into the market and aggressively pursue help at that position.
Right.
You have a floor to meet in spending. Like, that's the issue.
I'm not just sitting back and going, well, we got some guys, we got some lesser guys in the draft, and we've got some lesser guys who are already here, and it's like we're just going to tread water at that position.
Same thing back out.
Look, it's great to say. But until somebody gets traded, then what are we doing?
I love your optimism for Boston teams. I admire it.
It's not optimism.
But go make it happen.
What are you going to do? Get a gun and put it to the head of a GM and say, trade Michael Pittman? Like, who's available? Who is the number 1 guy that Cincinnati doesn't want to trade T. Higgins? Mike Brown.
Well, nobody wants to trade a good wide receiver, but they get traded. Go out and make an offer. I want to know that they've made legitimate offers and are making an effort to try to improve this team.
They made calls. Everybody has said they made calls to San Francisco for Brandon Ayuk. And again, did Brandon Ayuk get traded? No, he didn't. And the word was that San Francisco wants a 1st-round pick. You were not going to give up your 1st-round pick when you need a tackle wide receiver because you need a tackle wide receiver and quarterback.
Well, there's your wide receiver.
But if you trade a 1st-round pick, you're going to trade the 3rd pick in the draft for Brandon Ayuk?
No, because we're not going to have the 3rd pick in the draft.
I'm talking about this year.
Well, I'm talking about right now.
I'm talking about during the draft, Ryan. Like,
okay,
he's saying,
and I'm talking about right now. Brandon Ayuk just came out and said he wants $120 million that the 49ers really don't have to give to him. So, are you on the phone with John Lynch today offering him a 1st-round pick for Ayuk?
Yes.
First of all, I don't think that San Francisco doesn't have the money. I think they're just playing hardball. I think Ayuk is going to stay in San Francisco, and he's going to get paid a lot of money.
They don't have the money.
They're going to get the money by trading Deebo Samuel. So, look, we're jumping on this on May 27th. At the end of the day, before they kick the football off in September, Brandon Ayuk will be a 49er, and he will get paid. I've seen this movie before. I sat through it, and I talked about it every day in Sacramento when they went through it with Deebo Samuel. It was the same stuff that was said. It was the same social media activity. The 49ers said the same stuff. Deebo said the same stuff that Ayuk is saying.
So are you happy rolling this team out there as is right now?
It's a completely different question.
No, because they're not making moves. They're not making calls.
They've improved. They've improved everywhere. They've improved everywhere. Look at their roster last year. You don't think they've improved? They've improved everywhere. Their quarterback room is better. Jacoby Brissett and Drake May are better than Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. Ramondre Stevenson.
That's what I was going to say.
Did you see last year? Yes, I know that. I know Jacoby Brissett will play better than what Mac Jones gave this team towards the tail end and what Bailey Zappi gave them when he came in. Their wide receiver room is better. We're talking about...
You're putting a lot on a rookie quarterback.
No, I'm not. To be better than Bailey Zappi?
That's never played a snap.
To be better than Bailey Zappi, that's putting a lot on him? Look, if Drake May can't be better than Bailey Zappi, he should not have been picked 3rd. We should not even have the conversation. Wide receiver room, they're better. They were a 4-win team. Their offense was a catastrophe last year.
They're not favored in a single game this year.
I don't care. They improved the team. They're playing a tougher schedule. Hold on.
No, we're super late. We got to get to our break.
All right.
Kendra will give us headlines. We can continue on the other side. 617-779-0985. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy here on Memorial Day.
Last night in the Western Conference Finals, the Mavericks took a commanding 3-0 series lead over the Timberwolves. Both Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving had 33 points, but PJ Washington Jr. would get it done, putting up a tie-breaking three-pointer with 3:38 remaining. The Mavericks would roll on to win from there. Some good news for both Mavericks and Celtics fans. No team in NBA playoff history has rallied back from being 3 down in a series. As for your Boston Celtics, they will play a Game 4 tonight against the Pacers in Indiana. It was originally reported that Kristaps Porzingis could come back as early as this game, but has officially been ruled out. Pre-game for tonight will be available right here on the BetMGM Celtics Radio Network at 7:34 and 8 p.m. tip. And reigning National League MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. tore his ACL in his left knee last night in a game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had torn the ACL in his opposite knee prior and obviously will miss the remainder of the 2024 season. A huge hit to this team after losing pitcher Spencer Strider earlier this year. And the Red Sox hosted the Milwaukee Brewers this weekend at Fenway Park. Yesterday's game got the juices flowing when the benches cleared between the two sides. The dispute started during the top of the 7th inning when Boston Chris Martin covered first base on a ground ball by Brewers Christian Yelich. As Martin walked back to the dugout, he can be seen making a comment to Milwaukee first base coach Quentin Berry that compelled Berry to respond quite angrily. There was no pushing and shoving and no punches thrown in the confrontation, and the Red Sox are back on the field today to take on the Orioles at 1:05. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Eastern Mass's leader in drain cleaning and pipelining, Drains by James. Slow drain, clog drain. You need to contact Drains by James today at drainsbyjames.com. You're listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub, Boston's home for sports. I'm Kendra Middleton, and your next update is around 9:30.
This is Kristaps Porzingis.
Left-hand dribble, lobs it towards Porzingis, catches with one hand and throws it down.
You're listening to the home of Boston Celtics basketball. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Now, more Tuncher and Hardy on the Sports Hub.
.5 The Sports Hub. Toucher and Hardy here on this Memorial Day. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles making his triumphant return to the Sports Hub after how many years did we figure out? 6?
Yeah, 6. Said that with disdain. Nick Cattles.
Some people are happier that you're back than others, I'm sure. It's kind of the way it works in this business, right?
No,
but you were part of the weekday crew here for a long time.
I was,
both off air and on.
Yeah, I started when we launched this puppy. I was a day one guy, working with Tangway and Zoe. Yeah,
Tangway,
Gary Tangway. I was with Tangway and Zoe. Yep, and all this time, then came back to work with my guy RJ.
Kendra asked me when I first got here this morning. She's like, "Have you worked with this guy Nick before?" I said, "I was at his going away party when he the first time he left."
That is so true. Controversy. That is so true. You were.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who else was there. A number of guys that are at the other station now, I think, were there too. I think Jonesy, maybe Keefe. I think maybe made an appearance.
Yeah.
Murray was there. I think Joe Murray was there.
But no, you look at. Nick went off and, visited other portions of the country and
traveled the world.
You were a restaurateur at one point, I think.
Still am.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Own a slice of the bar. Tailgate Sports Pub down in Virginia Beach, 757.
If you're ever down there.
9-year anniversary coming up.
That's not bad in the restaurant business.
We survived COVID, man. That was the whole thing. We got through it. So, yeah. Fun stuff.
We've touched on a lot of different things this morning. Obviously, we've talked more than a little bit about the Celtics. And if you are just kind of waking up in your Memorial Day morning hangover, welcome to the show. Appreciate it. But last night, the NBA Finals matchup was essentially set in stone because there's never been an NBA team to come back from a 3-0 deficit, and there are 2 3-0 deficits now in the conference finals. Celtics look to close out Indiana tonight, and the Dallas Mavericks have a 3-0 lead over Minnesota. So that series is all but done. And so now June 6th, I'll say that again, June 6th
Pretty gosh damn ridiculous.
is the first game of the NBA Finals. We literally might not have an NBA game for a week and a half before the finals.
And the NBA, it's not like the NFL, and the NFL's got this stuff figured out, right? Like it's planned. So they have their media night. They have all this stuff they do during the week. This is going to be just, hey, good luck talking about this stuff for the next 7 to 9 days. If the Celtics can close and Dallas can close these next 2 days, that layoff is going to feel like forever.
I think that I should be allowed to gamble on how many of the F. Kyrie shirts will be in TD Garden
God.
that they sell out front.
Breaking records. Breaking records.
So is this – I mean, I wanted to honestly see them have to go through Denver, but obviously that didn't work. Like that to me is, trying to take down the defending champs is.
I do think though
is part of it. Like
Denver
a championship is a
Denver.
championship, and I'm not saying it takes away from anything. If they ultimately win the title,
Right.
that's what matters. It doesn't matter how they got there. It doesn't matter who they had to go through to get there. But like the Dallas matchup, I gotta admit, as insufferable as the Kyrie stuff is going to be, it's probably the most intriguing of the bunch. Like just because of the history there, because how some of these guys that are still on this Celtics team feel about Kyrie, and it's like the media is going to be insufferable about it, but ultimately, I wouldn't mind them seeing slay the Mavericks to win the title.
This is definitely the most entertaining of the options that were left available. I do agree that as a consumer, the Nuggets matchup would have been the best that we would get. But if it's not going to be the Nuggets, I probably would have said I'd like to see OKC just because it feels like a young team versus like maybe the next young and up and coming team out west. I would have loved to see, Chet Holmgren kind of in his rookie quote unquote year, regardless of how you feel about those rules. I would have loved to see him and maybe like the revenge tour of Josh Giddey and, SGA and stuff like that, just from the storyline that it would have been, both really young teams. I get that the Celtics have been in positions before, but they still are a super young team at their core.
I think it says an awful lot about the team that Brad Stevens has built. Because if you think about it, whatever matchup you want to bring up, you can say, well, the Celtics could have played that team this way. They could play that team this way. They're so versatile. When Kristaps Porzingis is healthy, if KP is out there, they're so versatile because they can play double bigs, but they can draw you out, right? They can force Rudy Gobert and these big guys like Jokic. They can force them out of the paint, going 5 out, as they say, right? But then you look at Dallas, and if it is Dallas, which we all anticipate now at this point, you go, oh, they've got those guards. They got Luka and they got Kyrie, but Celtics have Derek White and Drew Holiday, 2 all-NBA defenders on the perimeter. It's not to say they're going to shut Luka and Kyrie down, but they're so adaptable to, and that's because of Stevens. Stevens has built a ridiculously talented top 6 with versatility, and you don't get that every day. So I think people, RJ, are going to fall in love with the idea of Kyrie and Luka, and I get it because we always focus on offense. My question is, who are they going to defend? Like I've heard about Luka and how he's playing defense more now. Okay, he's not going to slow down Jaylen Brown. Like, if I'm the Celtics, I have a number of guys I can at least try to throw at Luka. Mm-hmm. Might not limit him because he's so damn talented, but I've got Drew Holiday. I've got White. I've got Jaylen Brown. If I'm the Celtics, I'd probably defend Luka with Brown to start off the series if that's what it's going to be. But you have a lot of options. These other teams, they just don't have that, and that's why you see a team like Minnesota play well against Denver, because their roster was better against Denver. The way it's constructed, very tough matchup for them against Dallas.
I also think the problem that Dallas potentially has in this series is that Kyrie has been supposedly more mature down there, right? He's kind of learned his place, and it's not necessarily as the guy at the top of the food chain, but he's coming back to Boston. Like, I feel like that the old Kyrie starts emerging in this series, and it has to be about him, and he wants to be the guy who wins a championship by beating Boston because of the history here. Like, I just feel like we will see the old bad Kyrie.
This town will light on fire if Kyrie and Luka.
Well, there is that benefit too. That just
this town.
I will hate it with every fiber of my being. If that guy wins the title.
Amount of puckering that is going to go on right with Celtics fans and Celtics media over the course of the next few weeks. If the Celtics look like they're going to lose this series,
people will
Kyrie,
burn TD down.
Oh my God, it's going to be horrible.
Then they'll be like, "Well, we didn't
It's
lose."
going to be so delicious at the same time.
Do you buy it? Do you buy the Kyrie stuff?
What, that he's a changed
man?
man? No, I don't believe anybody really changes.
Kendra, do you?
A little bit. I think as someone who's I feel like my frontal lobe developed last year, and I'm fully a cognizant human being now. Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would hope for him. On it, as much as he drives me crazy and infuriated me throughout the early part, and I was like, he bothered me a lot before the Celtics, during the Celtics, after the Celtics. I would hope as a human being he has evolved a little bit. Like if you're not evolving as a human, then you're not doing it right. You've got to try to be better as you get a little bit older. So hopefully he has. We'll see though. I think for him it's absolutely best for him to be the second guy, and that's been proven. He's better equipped to deal with being the second banana than the top dog. The same thing with LeBron when he went through it with that, and now with Luka. When he's the top guy and he's going to kind of lead the team, it gets a little weird.
And I think in this situation, if I'm the Mavericks, like if it were anybody but the Celtics that we were playing in the finals, it would be like I'd expect exactly that.
I'm
I'd
scared
be like,
that it'll motivate Luka too.
Well, I mean, that's a whole different story. I mean, because he is, clearly the number one guy. He is he should be motivated. But Kyrie's motivated in a different way, and that would scare me if I'm a Mavericks.
I kind of dig the idea though, looking at it the other way too. Tatum and Brown, I think, would be very motivated to go back and, Kyrie, that the whole story about, they wanted to kind of lead and Kyrie was like, I'm the leader. And I think to them it would be the ultimate proving ground of
but aren't him
we
and
get
Jaylen
to get
friends?
him out. Yeah, but I think
they all seem to still really like him.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's been some stuff about they might not be close. They might be friendly, but I mean Donovan Mitchell is Jaylen's really close friend, and Jaylen wanted to murder Donovan Mitchell in the second round. So I think Tatum and Brown will be very motivated to take out Luka and Kyrie because we're gonna hear it all the time. Doncic and Irving are that unbelievable tandem.
Yeah. I wonder what Porzingis' relationship with them is currently, because obviously he has ties to Dallas. I'm curious if when he comes back, what that relationship is like.
Yeah, I could see him being motivated, have a little chip on the shoulder.
Yeah.
617-779-0985. You got any thoughts on the Celtics as they head to Game 4 tonight? Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy.
Stay tuned for more Toucher and
said, seldom right and never wrong.
Right here. Is that toucher or is that target?
I know, looks like a poodle. It's an effing poodle, dumbass.
The Sports Hub.
Little O'Brien, ooh, what'd he do? Ooh.
Yeah, Dave O'Brien has like, ooh.
I think we should keep that one and use it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Ooh. Dave O'Brien was very excited about the possibility of a real brawl during the Red Sox game.
Ooh.
Why is Chris Martin having words with the first base coach?
I mean, that game, the Red Sox offense, not a lot of excitement happening recently. So
who's the first base coach?
Yeah, Maloney was like, I'm taking names. Who's that first base coach?
I'm going to go kick the crap out of him in the parking lot afterwards. Let's get to your calls here on the Celtics. We got you lined up here. We got James up first. What's going on, James?
Hey, good morning, guys. Happy Memorial Day. I'm really enjoying the show.
Thank you.
From your last segment, it brought back a thought of mine from your last segment about how Jaylen Brown in the All-Star game, I believe in 2023, was going up against Jason Tatum in a way that he wanted to show the world that he was better than Jason Tatum. Whereas Jason Tatum was like, hey, you know what? It's another year where I get to kick it around with the boys. And my biggest problem with Jason Tatum is that, like, he should be the one, if he's the number one guy on the Celtics, who should be in the postgame saying, look, losing by 25 to Miami at home again in the playoffs, that's just not acceptable. And to kind of go on ahead and lay it down on the line for everybody. And it seems like Jaylen Brown is really the only guy to do it on the Celtics. Enjoy the rest of the Memorial Day, guys.
All right,
Thank you very much.
We're going to go down this road again?
Trying my best not to. No, look, I just think I understand, people want like the prototypical perfect vision of what they see as like a top player. Like you not only have to be super productive and really, really good and a top 5 guy in the game like Jason is, like you also have to like emote properly and you have to be almost flawless at the end of games. And the reality is there's not a lot of those guys, if any, that exist. Like
I think it's an NBA wide thing.
Yeah,
like it is just the game has changed, the league has changed, the players have changed, and so many guys are so close with so many other guys in this league. There isn't that like kill or be killed mentality around the league anymore. It's everybody goes out and daps each other up before the game. Everybody hugs in after the game and hangs out together. Like it's like watching an inter-squad scrimmage most nights in the NBA because nobody really hates each other.
Yeah, it's the AAU era. That began going back, 20 years ago or whatever. And that's really when it started to change. Like these guys traveled a lot with each other when they were younger. They played on the same AAU team or they played in the same competitive prep school and all that crap. Like that's kind of like, that's what happens now. Like really, that's what happens. And I just think like here's the thing. Here's what I would say. I think and I understand it, like we're in our own like world, right? We watch the Celtics. That's who we always, are just obsessed with. But there are a lot of guys that are seen as top players in the league, even the very best, that have failed at the end of big games, that have failed in finals, that have failed multiple times in the finals before they finally got past that hump. So it's like people try to treat Tatum as if he's this peculiar case. What's wrong with that guy? Like the reality is he's following the path of a lot of different dudes. If it's an if, but if they win the title this year, then he is precisely on the path that he should be on. Like when you look at wins, losses, when you look at statistics and analytics and what he's done at his age, he's on the path of the LeBrons and Kevin Durant's. I'm not saying he's those guys, but he's on that pathway of, well, he took that step. He went from top 20 to top 10. He went from top 10 to top 5. The toughest step, RJ and Kendra, toughest step in the NBA is to get from the top 5, like 5, 6, to top 2. That's a giant leap. And obviously not many guys can do that. The question is going to be if Tatum, does he make that next step this year? I think he's done a really good job up to this point.
I think it's too late for this year.
See, I think like last year.
I don't think he's incapable of doing it. It's just it's not this year.
So 22, he gets to the finals, right? And I think everybody was great with that. Like everybody wanted to win the championship, of course, but I think people looked at that and said they were younger. They got beat by Steph Curry. Last year, you get to Game 7, high ankle sprain. I'm personally not going to. They should not have been behind 3-zip. Obviously, Miami did have an out of body experience team wide from 3. I mean, just crazy. But, you know, he got hurt in Game 7. So this is his chance. 22, he was the young guy. He was learning. Steph beat him. This is his chance now. If he gets through healthy, he gets to the finals, he can take that step. And I'm telling you, if he takes that step, everybody here should be thrilled that he got there at the age of 26 because that is crazy.
Like you said earlier, it'd be kind of a little bit ahead of the curve. Like guys, you know, usually takes until 27, 28 before you kind of get to that level, right? John in Fort Myers is up next. Hey, John.
Hey, good morning. First of all, I wanted to give Kendra her props since she doesn't get them. I'm amazed at your attention to detail and your statistical information when you do that show with Dan on whatever morning it is.
Thank you, Ken.
And then I'd like to make I'm serious. I'm serious.
No,
It
I'm just laughing at your level of detail, not knowing which day it was.
Yeah. Good point. Well, when you're 67 years old, you'll know what I mean. And I'm fortunate enough to have been seen in the Boston area. So I'm so old, I remember when the Patriots were the Boston Patriots and didn't have a place to play. Anyway, so Kendra, I'd like to make a challenge to you. Being an old radio guy myself, I'd like to see who says the word again more. Over and under on Dan, who uses the word again probably in every sentence he says, along with Tony Mavs.
Ooh.
And there, my final thing is the question, who's the better team, the Mavericks or the Celtics? And I'll hang up and let you guys talk.
I appreciate the call. Man, Lift Shots has taken a lot of strays this morning.
Someone tweeted me on Saturday, and they said, if I had $1 for every time Dan Lifshad says your full name when speaking to you, I could retire.
To you?
Yeah, because he doesn't call me Kendra. He calls me Kendra Middleton.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a little odd.
It's all right. It helps the branding.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Everybody knows Kendra Middleton is Kendra Middleton.
Period.
Celtics are the better team.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the what-ifs can't be there, obviously.
Oh, no.
Because as far as predictability goes, I think the NBA is one of the sports where it is easier to predict who your winner will be based off of just kind of matchups and whatnot. But that being said, the Kyrie thing scares me. Should the Celtics lose this? No. And if they do, then any amount of hate that they're about to get from their fan base is more than warranted.
Kendra Middleton, you are right on that. Like, we can sit here and we can go through the matchups, but RJ, you know it. Everybody knows it. Luka is a ridiculous closer. Like, and it's funny because he's never gotten to the finals yet, but it's a lot about supporting cast. The guy, there's very few people that you would want the ball in the hands of with a final shot than Luka Doncic. And Kyrie has also had that ability. Mm-hmm. So we could sit here and we could talk about, the Celtics are the better team, but if Kyrie and Luka get hot, then
which they are and they have been, and that's the scary thing is that a lot like in hockey, it's whose hot hand is hottest right now.
Right.
And that's what scares me about the Luka and Kyrie thing.
I mean, unless you're Swayman and you get, nobody to help you out.
The thing about Luka Doncic to me is that there are times where he takes a shot or gets fouled and completes the shot through the foul. And I'm like, there's no way in hell that's going in the bucket. And for some reason, I swear to God, I don't know what kind of voodoo magic he's working with, but it works for him, man. Like, there are times where I'm just like, how the hell?
I'd also say about Luka, like, if you think some Celtics settle for shots, as great as Luka is, that dude takes at least 5 to 7 awful shots a game, and he doesn't make them all. Last night,
off balance.
Last night he settled for like 3 threes almost in a row, bricked them all, and I'm like, my God, like, so. My question would be is, hey, man, make them work, right? Like, there's no doubt that him and Kyrie can go off, but the Celtics have to combat that by, if that is the series, by making those two guys work defensively. Go right after, like they did with Halliburton, like they did, with Donovan Mitchell at times, with bigger, more physical guy. You go after Kyrie, you go after Luka, and you make them defend every single possession because you hope that if you do that by the fourth quarter, their gas tank's a little, lighter, and they don't have that same kick.
By the way, FanDuel's got Celtics as a minus 250 in the final against Dallas.
Yeah, they're the better team. They'll be favored.
Yeah, they're fairly heavily favored.
You want to hate me?
I don't want to hate you.
I took Jaylen Brown plus 500 last week as the NBA Finals MVP.
Oh, it'd be great. It'd be great. Look, I could not care less. They win a championship, I don't care. I don't care if Jaylen scores 50 a game and Tatum scores 10. I don't care how it happens. Just if they win
I don't know. That wouldn't be good for your baby boy Jason Tatum agenda.
It's not an agenda. It's fact. I mean, we can squabble all we want. I just gave you factual numbers. That's all I did.
Howard is up next here on Toucher and Hardy. Good morning, Howard.
How you doing, people? Happy holiday. You mentioned earlier about that you would prefer the Celtics win the title by beating the defending champions. Now, back in '86, which was before Kendra's time, the Celtics were looking forward to playing the Lakers, who were defending champions, and they had to sell to the Houston Rockets. Do you think that devalued the championship at all?
No, I did, and I said that at the time. Ultimately, a championship is a championship. Like, how you get there and who you beat on the way or in the finals, doesn't really matter. You get to have a parade at the end of the year. It's been a damn good year, and you'll remember that for the rest of your life. Beyond that, coming into the playoffs, if you gave me my druthers, I wanted to see Boston and Denver in the finals.
I think part of it with Tatum and this idea, first of all, the whole the path thing, give me a break. They earned the number 1 seed in the East. They dominated the regular season. Their best players played 70 games or more. Tatum and Brown, I think, both played around 70. They earned that number 1 seed. And you need good luck or good fortune in any run. That's just how it goes, right? I would also say, though, Eddie House said this a couple weeks ago, and I thought it made a lot of sense. I think Tatum, when people criticize him, it's almost because he makes it look too easy. He has this, he's laid back mentality, but he doesn't have to overexert himself to do some things that other guys have to overexert themselves in doing. And Eddie House said that, and I thought that was a really good point. I think people that tend to make it look easy, they tend to get criticized for not trying as hard or working as hard just because.
I don't think it's that. I think it's the way that he speaks to the media about things. I think that it's everyone's going to lose a game. Nothing's perfect. All of that stuff that I think is the difference for me.
Ant-Man came out after they lost game 1 and was like, we were just really tired. So, I think a lot of guys do that in the league.
Right.
I think it's NBA mentality.
All right, let's get to headlines here with Kendra. We will get to the stack coming up next. A few things we have not talked about, including what did the Dolphins' Jaylen Phillips find in his toilet? Yeah. And when swamp ass affects your play calling abilities, we will get to that next. Ryan Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for the guys here on Toucher and Hardy. Johnston, Nick Cattles, Kendra Middleton in for Toucher and Hardy today. Gang should all be back here tomorrow. And as we wrap up on this Memorial Day, a couple of things we have not gotten to. The real important stuff of the day. Kendra's from Florida. I have a feeling she's going to understand this story. Jaylen Phillips, Miami Dolphins linebacker, went on his, I believe it was his Instagram the other day, to share what he found in his toilet.
This is some Florida if I ever seen it. But how the hell did he get in there?
How the hell did he get in there? He. This is, it's an iguana or some sort of a lizard. He calls it an iguana. I'm not sure exactly what species it is. But I was thinking when I saw the headline of this, because I've been down, my dad lives down in Florida now. You see those little gecko lizards kind of running around all over the place. They're like, they're
iguanas.
Like 4 or 5 inches long. They're just kind of skittering around on the patio, or like occasionally one gets in the house. It's like that's just part of the deal.
Right.
This thing that he's talking about is legitimately, I would say with the tail, it's got to be at least a foot long.
You think this thing's big?
No, I don't. I've seen way bigger than this.
I was going to say, this one's just a baby.
No,
I've seen spiders bigger than that.
My cousin had one of the, like a full-size, Komodo dragon, style iguana in his room. So, but this thing just hanging out in the toilet. Like this, I want to make it clear. This is not just this one of these little this is a real lizard.
He was hot. If not friend, why friend shape?
I'm so out on this. I don't know if I'd be able to sit on my toilet ever again.
Here's a little more of Mr. Phillips here.
This is some Florida if I ever seen it.
Literally.
But how the hell did he get in there? That man is bathing in my toilet. And he's not a pet. I don't know where he came from. It's a grown man.
It's a grown man.
It's a grown man.
I think he's so cute. I just want to I'd keep it as a pet, but that's my biggest red flag.
I'm with you, Nick. Okay. Because you get these stories every once in a while, God. Snake coming up through the toilet, stuff like that.
Oh, God.
I feel like there would need to be a complete remodeling, or I'm selling the house.
Yes.
I can't. Maybe I'm going to have to bring in a plumber to put in some sort of special contraption to make sure that nothing's coming up through the pipes.
That man is bathing.
Here's the bigger problem. It's not even just the bathroom. It is my own psyche. I would need an intervention to probably poop again. Because, if I saw something like
this
that.
would just shut down your intestinal tract.
Are you scared of reptiles?
I'm scared of reptiles trying to bite my ass when I'm going to the bathroom.
You don't even have to sit as often as girls, though. You only sit a half the time.
It's another story for another day, Kendra. But yeah, I mean,
you sit when you pee?
No.
Full on Larry David here. Okay.
No. I'll just.
He's like, first thing in the morning, if I'm feeling a little lazy,
maybe. No. I'm anyway. So I don't want to go to bathroom habits. I tend to take a little bit longer than others with one half of the equation. But I don't want anything digging at me or biting at me or my bare ass right above them and just that doesn't freak you out at all.
This happens in Florida all the time.
I know, but imagine it
This is some Florida.
If you go, if you're walking towards a toilet and you just sit down on the toilet, right? You're not looking in. You just sit down. And all of a sudden, you're sitting there, and something grabs your tuchus. That's not just all of a sudden, bow! You get bit. That's not gonna freak you out.
I mean, obviously it would, but
yeah.
Do you not check the toilet before you go pee or
I
whatever?
do, but who knows if they slither up?
This is the unanswered question in this is where did this thing come from?
I think my Florida girl mentality is so unbothered.
Did it somehow come up through the pipe, or did it, was it wandering around in the house and just happened to find a cool spot in the bathroom?
Oh, that freaked me out too.
I'm just looking for a little, he's
hot. Grown man.
Because I get occasionally you get a mouse or something that gets into the house. This is the Florida version of that. You get an iguana that crawls into the house. But if it's coming up through the toilet, I'm out. I'm done.
I'm so out. I had a buddy in Virginia when I lived down in Virginia. They have water bugs, giant water bugs down there. And my buddy told me the story one time that he was sleeping and the water bug ran across his face right into his mouth. And I'm just I had trouble sleeping for the next 2 months. I could not get that out of my head of I'm going to fall asleep and a water bug is going to...
Well, statistically, don't you swallow like 2 spiders a year?
Why'd you have to say that?
No, I know.
I think that's a fact.
Why are we going there?
No,
right
that's
now?
like, I think that's literally...
I don't think that's necessary. I don't think you're trying to like get into my head now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to go to the bathroom later, and now I'm going to be thinking about
don't fall asleep with your
how
mouth
many
open.
spiders
You
I
better
swallowed.
tape
Nick is going to be sleepless and
You
constipated.
better tape your mouth shut when you sleep.
Exhibits a spider.
How was the show, Nick? I thought the show went well, but after the show, man, my
I'm never
brain
gonna
was
sleep
broken
or
for
poop
like 2
again.
months. It was a personal hell afterwards. My God.
All right, well, let's cleanse the palate with this one. You been watching any of the UFL?
I have.
About 2
Who
minutes
wants
of
to
it.
go to the Four Seasons Orlando?
Are you
Me.
betting? Are you betting on the UFL? Do you bet on? No.
I love college football, so I feel like
Oh,
it's
I
a
do
good
too.
spot to watch all of the guys that don't quite,
Yeah, I
So
love college football.
the United Football League, not sure what kind of ratings this is getting, but one of the things that they do in an effort to try to open up the game and get people interested is we got a lot of mic'd up players.
Yeah.
And so when you have mic'd up players, you never know what you're going to hear. This weekend, it was the Michigan Panthers and the Houston Roughnecks, and very hot down in Houston, Texas. So on the sideline, the center, you're going to hear his voice here. His name is Jack Kramer, is talking to the quarterbacks, Nolan Henderson and Reed Sinnett.
Okay.
And wanted them to know something very specific about his performance.
Center from here on out. My ass is not this wet. The volunteer trainer just absolutely soaked me with the sponge.
I felt it on my 35, and as I'm sitting there, I try to have it as under there as little as possible because you're just dripping on my
pistol. Then. I just want you to know that a lot of it's sweat.
It was pistol. Because like I handed that ball off, and I literally am dripping from your ass.
You just soaked me. So now I'm like.
So now you're even worse.
Now it's. Can I get a feel?
Some of the nuanced perils between center and quarterback on the.
So the center goes over to the quarterback and says, I just want you to know my ass is not this wet. I don't sweat this bad. So they showed it right after that. The trainers were literally just taking wet sponges and squeezing them over guys' heads while they're sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
Because it's Texas in May. It's like 180 degrees and humid. So they're just wringing wet sponges over these guys' heads.
Absolutely soaked me with the sponge.
So the quarterback's like, the ball's soaked. I'm trying to hand it off, and he thinks he's got ass sweat all over his his hands.
If I'm the quarterback, I would throw it up in my mouth.
But he literally says, "Think we can go pistol?" Like we're going shotgun the rest of the game because I don't want to put my hands under there anymore.
I mean, I guess I give credit to the center for like being truthful, but if he really wanted to get to the quarterback, he could have had a field day with that.
I just think it's guys being dudes. Nut up or shut up. I don't know.
Guys being dudes.
Like,
Dudes
who
being
cares?
Yeah, I care.
I care.
But you're all touching each other and rubbing all over each other anyway. It's like, isn't it all the same sweat?
Yeah, but
touching each other and rubbing.
Like, let's be real. Football's a hands-on. It is a contact sport. You're touching each other, sweaty dudes. You're at the bottom of piles.
Yeah, so like,
that's what it is.
Like, there's just something specific about like some guys
Swamp
drippy ass sweat.
Yeah,
like getting on my hands.
That I'm out. Yeah, I'm out.
Like it's one thing
anyway.
if I'm like wrap a guy up, tackle him. Like okay, yeah, there's an exchange of sweat among us.
It's not like they don't slap each other on the ass to say good job anyway. Come on.
I've never really understood that.
I guess it's just the volume, right? Is that
yeah,
that's what
I think
bothers you? The volume of the liquid?
Yeah,
that would really
it's not just in passing. It's like literally every play I'm under there. It's like the ball's like too slippery to hand off.
There's a line that has to be drawn.
Your ass is dripping on it.
I always figure like I've known Zoe for a long time, so I don't know. I kind of just think of like almost every football player like a Zoe. Like Zoe, I don't think Zoe would care. Oh, whatever.
I mean, there are worse things that happen during the course of like we hear stories of offensive linemen who are peeing on themselves.
But that would freak me out. I'm a germaphobe, man. To the crazy. Me and Kendra were talking about it before we came back on the air. Like I am a crazy. I've accepted it. I've embraced it. I'm a crazy germaphobe. So bodily fluids and all that stuff, like. Yeah, ass sweat from I'm.
Do you let people
out.
wear shoes in your house?
Yeah.
You do? So you're not a real germaphobe, in my opinion.
Well, I wear shoes though.
Yeah, but like I feel like I'm a real germaphobe. I bought it like that doesn't bother me, but like no shoes in the house.
Was that to keep the carpets clean, or is that to
yeah, because if you're
is that
walking
really about
outside with
germs?
like dog poop and everything that's on the streets and everything, and you're chucking that into your
there's
house,
a difference
Badass
between
Billy Gunn.
There's a difference between cleanliness and germaphobe.
I'm a yeah, I mean, I don't like shaking hands. I don't like touching things. I got to wipe things down constantly. I use hand sanitizer a ton. This was before COVID. I wash my hands a lot. Just
no swamp ass though. You guys are anti-butt stuff.
We'll leave you on that.
Perfect way to end this Memorial Day show.
Nick, maybe we'll do this again in like 7 years.
Yeah, look at what's 2031. Can't wait.
I know Beatles here. I think McCone's in too on the midday show. Coming up
McCone didn't
next.
even come in and say hello, by the way.
Oh,
just rude. McCone, rude.